Chapter 630. In the treasure vault of the side hall. No one was guarding it, because Qin Shujian had already set up an array formation in this treasure vault. Without his handwritten instructions, no one else could enter this place. A peak second realm array master, coupled with Qin Shujian's strength, even if a mighty figure was in front of him, it would not be easy to break the array formation. Not to mention, now in the Qin Yuan realm, excluding him, only Qin Yuan Bai and the rest were weak. He took a step forward. The array formation was activated. Qin Shujian easily pushed open the door of the side hall. He entered the side hall. There was not much space. Only shelves were placed one after another. What was on the shelf wasn't anything special either. Instead, there were storage rings. There were many sects in the world, and all the resources were piled up together, which took up too much space. Therefore, these resources would be stored in storage rings. But even so, the number of storage rings in front of him was not small at all. After Qin Shujian scanned with his divine consciousness, he was also a little surprised. More than 200,000 storage rings. It seems that these sects are quite rich. Qin Shujian shook his head and sighed. But he also understood. The more than 200,000 storage rings in front of him included cultivation methods and martial arts. But even if he abandoned cultivation methods and martial arts, there were no less than 200,000 storage rings filled with resources. The entire main hall. It was divided into two parts. 2/3 of the area was for storage rings of resources. 1/3 of the area was for storage rings of cultivation methods and martial arts. The purpose of Qin Shujian's visit this time. It was for cultivation methods and martial arts. The establishment of the Sacred Land. The establishment of the Sacred Land Academy. All aspects had been prepared, except for the cultivation methods and martial arts. In Qin Shujian's opinion, although there were many cultivation methods in the world, some were strong and some were weak, and each cultivation method was suitable for different people. As a result, it would greatly increase the difficulty of teaching in the academy. It would also greatly hinder the goal of preaching to the world. Therefore, what Qin Shujian wanted to do now was to collect all the cultivation methods in the world and deduce cultivation methods that were suitable for the human race to cultivate and could be passed down. This was the main reason why he collected all the martial arts in the world. The others thought Qin Shujian's purpose of collecting cultivation methods and martial arts was to monopolize them. In fact, his real purpose was to deduce martial arts. There is still a long way to go. Looking at the tens of thousands of storage rings, Qin Shujian suddenly sighed with emotion. There were so many storage rings. Even if there were only 10,000 books in each storage ring, there would still be millions of books. If he had to rely on one person to flip through and integrate them, it was extraordinarily difficult. Fortunately, now that Qin Shujian was strong enough, he had the confidence to do such a thing. His divine will left his body. One after another, Qin Shujian appeared out of nowhere. This was the incarnation of the spirit god. It was the standard method of the god martial arts realm. However, ordinary divine martial realm cultivators could only use their spiritual deity to create one or two incarnations. But now, Qin Shujian. Yet, he was able to create over 100 clones at once. Time to work. Qin Shujian felt a little strange when he saw so many copies of himself. However, he quickly suppressed this strange feeling and said, "Let's go." Yes, many incarnations nodded. Then, they picked up one storage ring after another and took out the martial arts in it to read. The incarnation of the spirit god. It could also have the function of the system. Every time it read a martial arts cultivation method, it would turn into a stream of light and disappear. In order to avoid being noticed by others, Qin Shujian also deliberately put the Godslayer in his yard and did not bring this little friend with him. A month had passed. More than half of the tens of thousands of storage rings had been emptied. The rest of them were not emptied. It was not because he didn't have time to learn them, but because those cultivation methods and martial arts were repeated and conflicting, so the second reading was no longer effective. Qin Shujian put down the martial arts in his hand. Then, he took back all the incarnations. Powerful memories exploded in his mind. Fortunately, his spirit god was strong enough. Because of these exploding memories, his spirit god was not affected. He stood there for an unknown period of time. Qin Shujian moved his body and felt the memories in his mind. Then, he looked at the dense cultivation methods and martial arts on the attribute panel. There was no end to them at all. A bitter smile appeared on his face. There are so many cultivation methods and martial arts this time. Fortunately, this attribute panel doesn't need to drag anything. I can see where I want to see. Otherwise, if I want to find the cultivation method I want in the future, just the time spent on searching would be enough to give me a headache. He shook his head. Qin Shujian opened the main hall and walked out again. At this time, in the Qian Yuan Hall, several elders were already sitting there. It was unknown what they were discussing. Seeing Qin Shujian's arrival, they all stood up and bowed. Greetings, Emperor Qin. What are you discussing? After sitting down on the main seat, Qin Shujian said calmly. He had consumed a lot of energy during this period. In addition, the Qian Yuan Hall itself had the effect of blocking perception, so he didn't hear much. Qin Yuanbai cupped his hands and said, Emperor Qin, during this period of time, the remnants of the sects formed an alliance and kept attacking the various academies, causing a lot of impact. We are now discussing countermeasures. Tell me. Qin Shujian was expressionless. Seeing this, their hearts skipped a beat, but they still told him the truth. After all, these things, they couldn't hide it even if they wanted to. After a while, Qin Shujian finally understood the whole story. The so-called remnants of the sections. They were the sects that didn't obey the orders of the Holy Land and were finally wiped out by the Sky Patrol. Because the Sky Patrol didn't kill them all, they spared some people who didn't participate. As a result, these people held a grudge and formed the Qin Destruction Alliance. There were no experts in this alliance, but there were also a large number of spirit martial realm cultivators. The people who destroyed the Qin Destruction Alliance never attacked the academies with spirit martial realm cultivators. They only attacked the academies with weaker strength. Although there were many Sky Patrol, but there were also a lot of academies. Coupled with the fact that the whereabouts of the people who destroyed the Qin Destruction Alliance were uncertain, it was difficult to grasp the specific trajectory. As a result, the other party attacked many academies and caused a lot of casualties. That's right, casualties. The impact that Qin Yuanbai said was actually very tactful. After understanding the whole story, Qin Shujian's face was expressionless as he said coldly, that is to say, a bunch of spirit martial realm rebels were able to lead you guys astray, causing my Qian Yuan Academy to suffer a great loss. Originally, I thought that since you guys were able to reach the celestial realm, you guys wouldn't be lacking in any aspect. It was also because of this that Bin Huang gave you the positions of Holy Land Elders and Supervisor Angels. But now it seems that Bin Huang is very disappointed. His voice was very calm, but in the ears of Qin Yuanbai and the others, they felt cold all over. A great fear surged into their hearts, causing them to break out in cold sweat. Emperor Qin, please calm down. Bin Huang needs an explanation. Qin Shujian looked at them with cold eyes. Several people looked at each other. Finally, Fang Xinglan stood up and said, Emperor Qin, it's not that we didn't do a good job. We really needed the aristocratic families to secretly protect those remnants, causing us to suffer a lot of obstacles. If those aristocratic families didn't participate, those sect remnants would have been eradicated long ago. He took all the blame. He threw all the blame to those aristocratic families. Qin Shujian said, why didn't you kill them? The aristocratic families do things secretly. Although we know that they are secretly protecting them, we don't have any actual evidence. If we kill them indiscriminately, I'm afraid it will cause a lot of trouble. Fang Xinglan braced himself and said, although the Sky Patrol had killed so many people during this period of time, it was reasonable to kill them. If all the aristocratic families were killed indiscriminately, then the Qinyuan sacred ground would really be tyrannical. Of course, Fang Xinglan didn't dare to say more. Although he had a good relationship with Qin Shujian, that was in the past. The other party was now the Emperor Qin. He was just a small celestial being and an elder of the Holy Land. It was good enough that he could speak in front of him. As for other things, Fang Xinglan still didn't want to touch this bad luck. Qin Shujian sneered and said, you seem to have forgotten that Bin Huang's words are an edict, and the Qinyuan sacred ground is the evidence. Anyone who disobeys the orders of the sacred ground and Ben Huang's edict is a traitor to the human race. Ben Huang doesn't need to tell you how to deal with traitors. Yes. Fang Xinglan and the others looked at each other and finally bowed their heads and said. Qin Shujian looked at the few people below him and said in a cold voice, "Pass down my order. Do everything you can to apprehend the traitors. If you catch any traitor, take his soul and search his soul. Find out who is harboring the traitors and the barbarians. If you don't want to be implicated, then obediently hand over the traitors to the Sky Patrol. In addition, if you refuse to cooperate with the Sky Patrol, you will be exterminated. If anyone dares to disagree, kill them." "Yes, Emperor Qin," Fang Xinglan and the others said in unison. When they raised their heads, at some point, Qin Shujian had already left. In Qinyuan Hall, everyone's expression was different. Qin Yuanbai looked at them and said with a sneer, "I have said long ago that the Qin Emperor is decisive and must be focused on killing. You can't do it because you are afraid of being cursed. Now, you still have to do it. If you can solve this matter early, you won't be blamed by the Qin Emperor. Brother Qin, have you ever thought that if you do this, there will be a river of blood?" A beautiful woman in a palace dress looked at Qin Yuanbai and said in a deep voice. Qin Yuanbai glanced at her and said indifferently, "Elder Shen is still too indecisive. So what if blood flowed like a river? How can any reform be without blood? Could it be that we didn't kill enough people when the Holy Land was established? Since we have already done it, why pretend to be merciful? It's just a joke. Brother Qin, do you know that if you do this, there will be more deaths than before?" Shun Ya's beautiful eyes flashed with anger as she questioned. This order was given by the Qin Emperor. If you don't respect the Qin Emperor, it is tantamount to betraying the clan. Elder Shen, I only hope that when the Qin Emperor blames you, you can still be so noble. Qin Yuanbai smiled disdainfully and immediately left. In his opinion, Shenya was a bitch, but she still wanted to maintain her chastity. She could become a celestial who didn't have a few lives on their hands. Killing one was killing. Killing 10 was killing. Killing 10,000 was also killing. Since it was all killing, what was the difference? However, Qin Yuanbai also hoped that the other party would continue to be so noble. When the time comes, he would complain about her in front of Qin Shujian. Maybe the sacred ground would have one less elder and the power in his hands would be greater. Qinyuan's sacred ground. It was not the sect of the past. This was the supreme sacred ground that ruled the cultivation world. The power in the hands of each elder was not comparable to that of the past. Even the sect masters of the top sects could not compare with the current elders of the sacred ground. Not to mention the elders, even the deacons of the sacred ground were not much weaker than the sect masters of the top sections. It could be said that, at Qin Yuanbai's position, every additional bit of authority was equivalent to a gargantuan benefit. So, in his opinion, 6 elders were still too many. If it was possible, it would be best if there were a few fewer. In this way, he could have more benefits. After Qin Yuanbai left, Fang Xinglan and Yin Banqing also slightly cupped their hands and then left. Ji Yuanliang also left behind. Soon, there were only 2 people left in Qinyuan Hall. One was Shenya, and the other was Cui Huai. Looking at the angry Shenya, Cui Huai shook his head slightly and said softly, "Elder Shun, times have changed. Now the Qinyuan sacred ground is the only one in the world. Anyone who is an enemy of the sacred ground will not have a good end. Although you and I are diviners, in the eyes of some strong people, we are just ants. If we don't go with the flow, we will definitely be smashed to pieces. Even if you think about yourself, you should also think about the inheritance of your lineage." Unlike others, Cui Huai and Shanya had some friendship. In the past, the 2 sects had a lot of transactions and cooperation. They were both diviners. Cui Huai also had some thoughts in his heart. Hearing Shanya's words, Shanya's beautiful face alternated between green and white, and no one knew what she was thinking. Cui Huai said, "Moreover, the Qin Emperor's order this time may not necessarily lead to many casualties. As long as those aristocratic families are sensible, there will be no problem. But if they are not sensible, then their deaths will be the will of heaven. The human clan is now surrounded by enemies. If we want to protect the East Continent, we must make changes. That's all I have to say. I will take my leave first. After that, Cui Huai slightly cupped his hands and left. He couldn't persuade too much. Those who really understood would naturally understand. But if they didn't, it would be a waste to say more. And she could become a diviner. Cui Huai's emotional control was more rational. He also had a lineage behind him. If he angered Qin Shujian for Shenya, he would just be courting death. Following Qin Shujian's order, the heavenly patrol guards also began to move. In a courtyard, 20 Sky Patrol guards, 3 Sky Patrol Divine Generals, and 1 Sky Patrol commander gathered together. In front of them, there was a person covered in blood lying there like a pool of mud. If it weren't for the slight rise and fall of his chest, he would be no different from a dead person. Pull out his spiritual deity and search his soul. Zhu Yin looked at the others with a cold expression and said faintly. Suddenly, Yang Xiu, who was standing on the side, took a step forward and directly pinched the other party with a vital essence hand. Then, the other party's physical body, which was on the verge of destruction, suddenly exploded. The moment the other party's physical body exploded, his spiritual deity came out of his body and a mysterious wave spread out. Immediately afterward, the spiritual deity, who was about to be destroyed because of the explosion of his physical body, was directly imprisoned in place. The cultivator's eyes were confused for a moment, but he soon sobered up. His face was full of anger and horror. Zhu Yin, you are willing to be the dogs of the Qianyuan sacred ground and kill your fellow cultivators. Even if I die, I will never let you go. You are about to die. Why talk so much? Zhu Yin sneered, then came in front of the other party's spiritual deity and directly covered the top of his head with his palm. Let me see which family dares to protect you. Don't even think about it. The cultivator was terrified and was about to explode his spiritual deity. However, Zhu Yin was a great cultivator in the god martial realm. How could a cultivator in the spirit god realm be qualified to explode his spiritual deity in front of him? Boundless mighty power descended upon them. The cultivator was directly imprisoned. After about a quarter of an hour, Zhu Yin put down his palm. At this time, the cultivator's spiritual deity had become illusory, although it was illusory to begin with. Now, it was even more illusory, as if it would shatter at any time. Zhu Yin glanced at the other party disdainfully and said to a divine general, "Put away his spiritual deity. Don't lose it." After this matter, if the supervisor Angel and Emperor Qin want to verify the authenticity of the matter, they will need to use him. Okay. A divine general of the Divine General Patrol took out a jade bottle and directly put away the cultivator's spiritual deity. This was a spirit chi bottle that contained a spiritual deity. It was also forged by the Qianyuan sacred ground for use at this time. All the sects in the world belong to the Qianyuan sacred ground. Similarly, all the forgers in the world belong to the Qianyuan sacred ground. Other forgers were fine, but forgers above the master level were qualified to stay in the sacred ground to cultivate. And these treasures that contained spiritual deities, they were forged by those forgers. Yang Xiu looked at the commander of the divine guards and said in a deep voice, "Do you know who is protecting the survivors this time?" The Zhao family of the Beichuan Grand Region. Zhu Yin spat out a few words. Hearing this, many people's expressions changed slightly. The Zhao family of the Beichuan Grand Region. It was a famous family in the cultivation world. Although in terms of strength, it was not as good as those big sects in the big regions, there were still 2 cultivators in the god martial realm in the family. There were also many strong cultivators left. A divine guard said in a deep voice, "The Zhao family is not weak. If we act rashly, I'm afraid we won't get any benefits." They were not weak either. Zhu Yin was a strong cultivator in the god martial realm. He also had 3 divine generals in the 7th level of the spirit martial realm and 20 divine guards in the airborne realm. But against a big family like the Zhao family, they were still not strong enough. Yang Xiu sneered and said, "What are you afraid of? Since the establishment of the divine guards, we have never been afraid of anyone. It's true that the Zhao family has 2 cultivators in the god martial realm, but they are only in the early stage of the god martial realm. Commander Zhu is a great cultivator in the middle stage of the god martial realm. He has no problem dealing with those 2. Do you think the remaining cultivators of the Zhao family can stop our divine guards? Hearing this, the others did not refute. At this moment, everyone's eyes fell on Zhu Yan. No matter how much they discussed, the one who really made the decision was still Zhu Yan. Zhu Yan pondered for a while and said to one of the divine guards, "Send a message to the divine guards in the northern spirit region. The rest of you, follow me to the Zhao family to kill the rebels." Yes, Yang Xiao and the others were excited. Destroy the family. This was the most exciting thing for them. Because to destroy any family, they only needed to pay a part of the resources, and the rest would be divided equally among the participants. This was a rule that everyone tacitly agreed upon. After all, benefits were the only thing that could truly unite everyone. For such a practice, even the supervisor angels above all turned a blind eye to it. As long as they did not take much, then there would be no problem. But if it exceeded 20%, the supervisor would intervene. It was precisely because they knew this rule. That was why Yang Xiao and the others were so excited. For a large family, 20% of the benefits was enough for each of them to earn a lot. Thinking of this, a divine general of the divine guards in the northern spirit region said, "Commander, if the divine guards in the northern spirit region are involved, each of us will get a lot less resources. Why don't we take care of it ourselves?" One more mouth meant that they and the others would get less. Not everyone was willing to share their benefits with others. Zhu Yin glanced at him, shook his head, and said, "Don't underestimate the Zhao family. You spend money to buy peace. If we fail miserably, the Qin Emperor or the supervisor will blame us. You and I won't be able to escape." Compared to the supervisor's blame, he was more afraid of the Qin Emperor's blame. Everyone in the human clan knew that the Qin Emperor of the Qinyuan sacred ground was an iron-blooded figure. Ever since the Qin Emperor became famous, anyone who dared to oppose him would definitely die. After the establishment of the Qinyuan sacred ground, in just 1 or 2 months, the number of cultivators who died had reached tens of thousands. And it was all the orders of the Qin Emperor. Zhu Yin understood that if he angered the Qin Emperor, he would only have a dead end. So, he did not dare to gamble. If the attack on the Zhao family failed and the divine guards suffered heavy losses, he, as the commander, would be guilty of failing his duty. Speaking of the Qin Emperor and the supervisor, the other heavenly patrols fell silent. Zhu Yin did not dare to provoke people, so how could they dare to provoke them? Beichuan Grand Region. The Zhao family. Since the establishment of the Qinyuan sacred ground, all the sects in the world belonged to the sacred ground. Even the aristocratic families that did not belong to the sects suffered a great impact. Because many aristocratic families, they were all related to the sections. Now that the sects did not exist, there was a certain loss for the aristocratic families. Not to mention, Qin Shujian also ordered to dig out enough resources from the aristocratic families to support Qinyuan College, which made many aristocratic families resentful. At night, the Zhao family was brightly lit. Zhao Huaiyan sat on the main seat, and the rest were the elders of the Zhao family and several outstanding direct descendants. Has there been any movement from the divine guards of the Beichuan Grand Region recently? Zhao Huaiyan looked at a handsome young man and asked in a deep voice. This was his son, Zhao Xingyi. At such a young age, he was already a cultivator at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm. He was the future successor of the Zhao family and a genius who was expected to lead the Zhao family to greater glory. After all, Zhao Xingyi was less than 40 years old. He was already at the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm. In the future, he would definitely break through to the divine martial realm. There was even a glimmer of hope that he could become a celestial being. So, in order to cultivate Zhao Xingyi, Zhao Huaiyan had already handed over many family matters to him. He even let him have a hand in many things. Hearing this, Zhao Xingyi cupped his hands and said, "The divine guards have been searching for those sect disciples during this period of time. They heard that Qin Shihuang came out of seclusion and was angry because of this matter, so the divine guards increased the search efforts. Also, I heard a piece of news, but I can't confirm whether it's true or not." "What news?" Zhao Huaiyan frowned and asked. The only thing he didn't like about this son of his was that he sometimes stuttered when he spoke. Zhao Xingyi said, I heard that Qin Shi Huang ordered a large-scale search of those sect disciples. If they are caught, they will all be searched. As long as the protector is found, there will be no mercy. The divine guards also spread the news, asking some families to take the initiative to hand over their sect disciples to avoid punishment. The three tribes. As soon as this sentence came out, many people's expressions changed. Zhao Huai waved his hand and motioned for Zhao Xingyi to sit down. Then he looked at the other elders and asked, "Do you think the order of the Qinyuan sacred ground is true or false?" It's hard to say. Qin Shi Huang is famous for his ruthlessness. If what he said is true, then this matter can't be false. An elder of the Zhao family said in a deep voice. Hearing this, someone else objected. Even if there is a family protecting them, it is only because of the old sect. It is a joke to have to destroy the three tribes because of this. Do they really think that the Qinyuan sacred ground is the sky of the human race? Even when the feudal lords rebelled in the past, Emperor Zhao was not so ruthless. Hearing this, some people also nodded slightly. Indeed, if the Qinyuan sacred ground really did this, then many people would die. If they really killed too many people, it was bound to cause a backlash. In their view, the significance of the existence of the Qinyuan sacred ground was to rule the cultivation world. If the cultivators of the world were dissatisfied with the sacred ground, then the Qinyuan sacred ground could not exist even if there was a human emperor. Could it be that Qin Shi Huang could kill all the cultivators in the world? Thinking of this, they all sneered in their hearts. Zhao Huai's face was silent, as if he was thinking about something. In the lobby, his voice gradually became softer and softer. After a long time, Zhao Huai looked at Zhao Xingyi and said lightly, "Tell them not to do anything during this period of time. Wait until everything calms down before making other considerations." After that, he looked at the other elders and said, "Now that the Qinyuan sacred ground has a large territory, even if our Zhao family is not afraid, there is no need to confront them head-on. Let's just endure for a while." "I think there is no need to endure." A cold voice sounded, causing everyone's expression to change. "Who is it?" Zhao Xingyi suddenly stood up and stared at the entrance of the lobby. At the same time, the other elders also looked dignified and looked at the source of the voice. They only saw a middle-aged man in a white robe with a token on his waist slowly walking in from the outside. As the middle-aged man stepped into the lobby, a boundless might surged forth like a tidal wave, causing everyone to retreat one after another. It was not until Zhao Huai stood up that this momentum was completely offset. The Sky Patrol. The eyes of the Zhao family's master were extremely dignified. The middle-aged man in a white robe said indifferently, "Zhu Yin, the commander of the Sky Patrol, is here on the order of Emperor Qin to kill the rebels." His voice was cold. As a result, the temperature in the lobby dropped a few degrees. Zhao Huai's dignified face suddenly smiled and said, "Commander Zhu, I'm afraid you have come to the wrong place. Our Zhao family has always supported the Qinyuan sacred ground and Emperor Qin. How can we be rebels? In my opinion, Commander Zhu must have misunderstood." Misunderstood? Zhu Yin shook his head and said indifferently, "The Sky Patrol has never misunderstood anything. Zhao Huaiyan, if you want to blame someone, blame yourself for taking the wrong path and causing the Zhao family to fall into eternal damnation." As his words fell, at this time, outside the lobby, a terrifying aura broke out, followed by a massacre. The shouts of killing outside could be heard. Zhao Huai's face became ugly. "Zhu Yin, how dare you come to my Zhao family to kill people? Why not?" Zhu Yin smiled slightly. Immediately, he took a step forward and blasted a palm toward Zhao Huaiyan. "Today, I'll see how strong you are as a god martial arts realm cultivator. All of you, retreat." Zhao Huaiyan roared and did not dodge Zhu Yan's attack. Boom! The two palms collided. A terrifying gust of wind blew, and the entire lobby was blown away by this power. In an instant, it turned into dust. At the same time, Zhao Xingyi and many elders of the Zhao family all left at the same time and charged outside. The Sky Patrol attacked the Zhao family. It was definitely not just Zhu Yin who came. They also clearly felt the aura that broke out outside just now. Now, the lobby was broken. The blocked vision also became clear. Immediately, they saw the experts of the Zhao family fighting with the Sky Patrol. On the ground, many people of the Zhao family had already fallen. By the order of the Qin Emperor, the Zhao family shall be exterminated. Yang Xiu roared angrily and swung out his spear, forcefully knocking back a Zhao family elder who was coming at him. Then, he took a step forward and the terrifying power caused the air to ripple. The spear turned into a rainbow and shot out, causing the expression of the elder of the Zhao family, who was in the 7th level of the spirit martial realm, to change. Without even thinking about it, he called out a spiritual weapon and fought with the opponent. However, the elder of the Zhao family was in the 7th level of the spirit martial realm, while Yang Xiu was in the 9th level of the spirit martial realm. In terms of killing methods, Yang Xiu, as a rogue cultivator, had experienced countless battles in the cultivation world. The elder of the Zhao family had lived like a prince for many years and didn't really have many opportunities to fight. His strength was inferior. In addition, he was crushed in terms of experience. All kinds of differences were added together, causing the elder of the Zhao family to be at a disadvantage in just one exchange. On the other side, Zhu Yin was already fighting with Zhao Huaiyan. The two of them fought in the void, and their terrifying auras spread out in all directions. Your Zhao family still has a god martial realm. Why didn't he come over? Is he waiting for me to kill you and then come out to collect your corpse? Zhu Yin sneered as he attacked. He was a cultivator in the 5th level of the god martial realm. Zhao Huaiyan in front of him was only in the 2nd level of the god martial realm. True strength. Naturally, it wasn't as good as him. Zhao Huaiyan didn't answer and just silently dealt with Zhu Yan's attacks. He knew that since the Sky Patrol had already attacked, there was no chance of survival. Therefore, Zhao Huaiyan didn't think that today's matter would be so easily let go. Zhu Yin wanted to kill him. He also wanted to kill Zhu Yin. At this moment, a powerful aura rose from below. An old man flew into the air. His true essence swept out, and his finger force cracked the sky and the earth. Zhu Yin was greatly alarmed. He didn't even think about it. He forced Zhao Huaiyan back with a palm strike, took a step away from his original position, and blasted out with a palm strike. The palm strike collided with the finger force. Suddenly, there was a burst of wind. The old man who had just flown into the air was shaken by this force and fell from the sky. Zhu Yin was also shaken to the point that his combat strength was unstable. Buzz! At this moment, a shocking sword chi erupted. The sword chi left as quickly as it came. Zhu Yin didn't have time to think and could only dodge to the side. He felt a pain in his chest. The sword chi had already penetrated his body and blood bloomed on his chest. A doctrine artifact. Feeling the pain in his chest, Zhu Yan's face turned pale. The sword chi just now passed through the right side of his chest, and his heart was in the left side of his chest. He had barely avoided a vital point. However, the sword chi was fierce and still raged on the wound, preventing it from healing. Zhu Yan's strength instantly dropped by a level. On the other side, Zhao Huaiyan held a snow-white long sword in his hand and looked at Zhu Yin with a sneer. Zhu Yin, do you really think that a cultivator in the 5th level of the divine martial realm can destroy my Zhao family? Today, all of you are destined to die here. He had a doctrine artifact in hand, and the other party was already injured. Zhao Huaiyan was very confident that he could kill Zhu Yin. At this moment, the old man who fell from the sky had also flown into the air and landed behind Zhu Yin. In front of him was Zhao Huaiyan, and behind him was the old master of the Zhao family. Both of them were great cultivators in the divine martial realm. For a moment, he had already fallen into a dangerous situation. However, Zhu Yin didn't show much fear. Instead, he stared at Zhao Huaiyan and said coldly, "Your Zhao family dares to be enemies with the Qinyuan sacred ground. Aren't you afraid of the wrath of the Qin Emperor? So what if the Qin Emperor is angry? He is nothing in my eyes. After I kill you, my Zhao family will find another place to hide. The world is big. Do you really think that the Qinyuan sacred ground can cover the sky with one hand?" Zhao Huaiyan smiled disdainfully. He didn't want to talk nonsense with Zhu Yin. "Forget it. I don't need to talk to a dead man. Today, your Sky Patrol is destined to be destroyed here." After that, Zhao Huaiyan was about to make a move. But just as he was about to make a move, he saw that Zhu Yin didn't panic. Instead, there was a bright smile on his face. Yes, there is indeed no need to talk to a dead man. Brother Hu, please make your move. After that, the void shook. A man came from the sky. His terrifying power swept across the world, making the two divine martial artists of the Zhao family change their expressions drastically. Hu Feng. Zhao Huayan's face was extremely ugly. Hu Feng, the commander of the Sky Patrol of the Northern Spirit region. He was even more powerful than Zhu Yin. In the 13 prefectures of the Great Zhao dynasty, there was a commander of the Sky Patrol in all the major regions. Zhu Yin was in the Beichuan Grand region, and Hu Feng was in the Northern Spirit region. But Zhao Huayan didn't expect that. Zhu Yin would still be so cautious. When he was dealing with his Zhao family, he even called Hu Feng over. Hu Feng stood in the air, looked at Zhu Yin, who had a hole in his chest, and said in surprise, "Brother Zhu, it seems that the situation is not good. There's nothing I can do about it. I was tricked by the Zhao family's Dao artifact." Zhu Yin said with a face full of misfortune. If it wasn't for the fact that the situation didn't allow it, he wouldn't want to embarrass himself in front of Hu Feng. Following that, he said again, "How many people did Brother Hu bring this time?" 3 Sky Patrol Divine Generals and 50 Sky Patrol Guards. Is that enough? Enough? Zhu Yin revealed a cruel smile, then looked at Zhao Huayan and the others who had ugly expressions on their faces, and said, "Brother Hu should have heard what this patriarch of the Zhao family said just now." "Of course I heard it. Disrespecting the sacred grounds, disrespecting the Qin Emperor. What should we do? This is betraying the human clan, and should be sentenced to death." Hu Feng spat out a few words, and an invisible killing intent spread out in the air. To this, the 2 divine martial artists of the Zhao family immediately felt a great deal of pressure. After Hu Feng appeared, they already knew that they couldn't do it. So, the 2 of them no longer had the thought of killing Zhu Yin. They only thought about how to find an opportunity to escape, and at the same time, let more disciples of the Zhao family escape. There was no other way. Even if Zhu Yin was injured, he was still stronger than the patriarch of the Zhao family. As for Zhao Huayan himself, even with a Dao artifact in hand, he was not confident that he could deal with Hu Feng, because Hu Feng was very strong. He was a true expert of the late stage of the divine martial force, and he was only at the early stage of the divine martial force. There was a difference of 6 or 7 small realms between the 2 of them. It was still a bit difficult to rely on a one-seal Dao artifact to make up for it. More importantly, with the addition of the Sky Patrol Guards of the Northern Spiritual Region, the Zhao family had already fallen into a complete disadvantage. If this continued, the Zhao family would definitely lose. Kill. The 2 of them looked at each other, and Zhao Huayan suddenly attacked, charging towards Hu Feng. As for the patriarch of the Zhao family, he also attacked Zhu Yin. A futile struggle. Looking at Zhao Huayan, who was attacking him, Hu Feng's expression was indifferent, but his eyes became serious. A cold blade light cut through the darkness. Then, there was an earth-shattering collision. Sparks instantly. A terrifying power erupted. Zhao Huayan took a step back, but in the next moment, he attacked again. Hu Feng glanced at the long blade in his hand. It was not damaged at all. While his heart relaxed, he also charged over. Boom, boom, boom. A great battle broke out. Both of them were great cultivators of the divine martial force realm. Hu Feng's cultivation completely crushed Zhao Huayan. As for the divine weapon, although he did not have a Dao artifact in hand, he still had a top high-grade spirit artifact. In terms of power, although it was not as good as a Dao artifact, it was not much weaker. Therefore, it was almost impossible for Zhao Huayan to gain the upper hand with a Dao artifact. On the other side, Zhu Yin was also fighting with the patriarch of the Zhao family. Although he was already injured, his strength did not decrease much. Against a cultivator of the second stage of the divine martial force, he still had the upper hand. Suddenly, Zhu Yin had a bad premonition in his heart. Without waiting for him to think much, he heard the patriarch of the Zhao family in front of him suddenly explode. Under the impact of the terrifying power, the qi that he had just raised was directly shattered. Boom! There was an earth-shattering explosion. Everyone's movements paused. just in time to see the scene of the other party's self-destruction and Zhu Yin falling from the void. Patriarch. There were elders of the Zhao family with a sorrowful expression. A sudden change. Many people did not expect it. It was also at this time. The sadness in Zhao Huayan's eyes disappeared in a flash. The Dao artifact sword in his hand flew out and directly exploded in front of Hu Feng. The self-destruction just now distracted Hu Feng. The Dao artifact's self-destruction at this moment was even more unexpected. Immediately, Hu Feng fell into a serious injury. If he was not wearing a spirit artifact armor, the self-destruction of the Dao artifact just now was enough to kill him. However, the self-destruction of the Dao artifact also caused Zhao Huayan to suffer a great impact. He looked at Hu Feng, who was seriously injured but did not die. A trace of regret flashed in his eyes, but he did not have the intention to go over and finish him off. He directly stepped down into the air and forced a Sky Patrol guard to retreat. Immediately, he grabbed Zhao Xingyi and fled into the void. P.S. It's not that I like to update at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. It's because I just finished writing at 2 or 3 o'clock that I update at this time. Chapter 631. Hu Feng's appearance. It completely shattered Zhao Huayan's fantasy. Originally, he thought that if Zhu Yin was the only one in the God Martial Arts realm, the two in the God Martial Arts realm of the Zhao family and the Taoist artifact would be enough to kill him. As long as he could kill Zhu Yin, then he could kill the rest of the Sky Patrol. When the time came, the Zhao family would leave the Beichuan Grand region and even the entire Beiyun mansion. Although the human clan now occupied the eastern continent, but in fact, there were many places in the eastern continent that the human clan had not touched. Not to mention other things. The endless mountain range, which was once occupied by the demon clan, was now abandoned and had become a place for the demon beasts to settle down. When the time came, once the Zhao family entered the endless mountains, even the Qinyuan sacred ground could not do much to them. A long time ago, Zhao Huayan had secretly arranged for the Zhao family to leave a foundation in the endless mountains, just in case. If something really happened to the Zhao family, they would have a place to live. After all, they were against the Qinyuan sacred ground. Sooner or later, they would be exposed. The reason why Zhao Huayan did not lead the entire Zhao family to retreat. First, it was because the matter had not been exposed yet. If they retreated in advance, it would be equivalent to directly abandoning the Zhao family's huge foundation. No one would be willing to accept that. Second, once the Zhao family retreated, they would no longer have the ability to be enemies with the Qinyuan sacred ground or cooperate with the remaining sections. So, Zhao Huayan had not done anything. Until now, when the Sky Patrol came, he knew that there was no way to hide the matter. He wanted to kill Zhu Yin and the others and lead the entire Zhao family to retreat. As for the source of his confidence in killing Zhu Yin, it was the Taoist artifact of the Zhao family. As early as 100 years ago, the Zhao family's half-step Taoist artifact had been upgraded to a real Taoist artifact. Zhao Huayan had kept this news a secret and had always concealed it. So, until now, no one knew that the Zhao family had a real Taoist artifact. It could be said that Zhao Huayan was well prepared. But the only thing he did not expect was that Zhu Yin would be so cautious. When he attacked the Zhao family, he even dragged Hu Feng over as well. Although Zhao Huayan had not joined the Sky Patrol, he had a good understanding of the Sky Patrol. Every region had a fixed Sky Patrol, and it was rare for the Sky Patrol to interfere with the affairs of other regions. Unless it was because he had encountered an enemy that he could not defeat. But the Zhao family had never exposed their real trump card, and they never expected that Zhu Yin would be willing to lower his face to contact Hu Feng. Everything happened too quickly. The intervention of the Northern Spiritual Region's Sky Patrol caused the Zhao family to completely collapse. Zhao Huayan was the head of the Zhao family after all, and he was also a decisive person. When he realized that he couldn't do it, he had already made up his mind to sacrifice the rook to save the king. The old patriarch of the Zhao family and his Dao treasure self-destructed, severely injuring Zhu Yin and Hu Feng. Zhao Huayan grabbed Zhao Xingyi and fled. In his opinion, the Zhao family was going to be gone. Compared to the rest of the Zhao family, Zhao Xingyi was undoubtedly the last hope of the Zhao family. as long as this direct descendant was still around. In that case, the Zhao family wouldn't be considered destroyed. Moreover, with his talent, he might be able to grow to an unprecedented height in the future and rebuild the Zhao family. As such, Zhao Huaiyan left without hesitation. Boom! The long spear pierced through the air, sending that Zhao family's elder flying while coughing up blood. Shortly after, the impact of his divine sense caused the Zhao family elder to feel a splitting pain in his head. Immediately after, a cold light flashed. The long spear pierced through his body. Ah! The Zhao family elder let out a shrill scream as he was nailed to the ground by the long spear. Yang Xiu looked coldly at the Zhao family elder who was struggling on the ground, and then looked at the seriously injured Zhu Yan and Hu Feng. In his heart, he was already filled with killing intent. The biggest target of this attack on the Zhao family was the patriarch Zhao Huaiyan, but he didn't expect that. Zhao Huaiyan would be so decisive as to directly injure the two commanders and retreat with the direct descendant of the Zhao family. Yang Xiu wanted to stop him, but there was no other way. He probably couldn't hide this matter even if he wanted to. He destroyed the Zhao family but let the most important person escape. If this matter spread to the Qinyuan sacred ground, he might be punished. For this, Yang Xiu was also helpless. He could only vent his anger on the Zhao family. On the other side, Zhao Huaiyan fled with Zhao Xingyi. The shouts and screams behind him indicated that a fierce battle was taking place in the Zhao family. But he didn't stop at all. From the moment he retreated, the entire Zhao family had become his abandoned pawn. As long as he left here first and escaped through the portal before the news spread completely, he would have a chance to get rid of the Qinyuan sacred ground. The endless mountain range was a way to hide. The other 3 continents. It was also Zhao Huaiyan's goal. If I can't hide in the endless mountain range, then I will go to the 4 continents and seek refuge with other races. I don't believe that there is no place for me in this big world. His face was ferocious. So what if he betrayed the human clan? The Zhao family was destroyed. So what if he defected to the enemy? Zhao Huaiyan was not afraid that other races would not take him in, especially those who were hostile to the human clan. As long as he was willing to go, those races would never refuse. Among other things, based on his understanding of the Baiyun Mansion and the human race, this piece of information was enough to tempt the other races. No matter what, it was necessary to enter the endless mountain range. All of a sudden, Zhao Huaiyan stopped in his tracks. In front of him, a middle-aged man in light gold clothes was standing with his back to him. It was supposed to be a simple back view, but in the eyes of Zhao Huaiyan and Zhao Xingyi, it was like an unattainable mountain, making the two of them feel extremely heavy. A celestial. At this moment, Zhao Huaiyan's face was extremely ugly. As for Zhao Xingyi, there was already despair in his eyes. A celestial. The Qinyuan sacred ground had already sent a celestial to intercept him. For him, this was already a dead end. When the man turned around, Zhao Huaiyan's pupil shrank again. Qin Yuanbai. Among the 6 sacred ground elders, he was the strongest one. At this moment, Zhao Huaiyan no longer had a trace of luck in his heart. Looking at Qin Yuanbai, he smiled sadly and said, I didn't expect that a small Zhao family could make an elder of the sacred ground personally take action. I am really touched and honored. Patriarch Zhao, there is something wrong with what you said, Qin Yuanbai said lightly. Hearing this, Zhao Huaiyan was shocked and said tentatively, Elder Qin, are you not here to destroy my Zhao family? I am indeed here to destroy your Zhao family, but my current identity is not a sacred ground elder, but a supervisor. Qin Yuanbai looked serious and corrected him. A sacred ground elder was a sacred ground elder. A supervisor was a supervisor. In his view, the two identities were completely different. The hope that had just risen in Zhao Huaiyan's eyes was extinguished in an instant. He realized. He seemed to have been fooled by Qin Yuanbai. Looking at Zhao Huaiyan's face, Qin Yuanbai shook his head slightly and said, You won't understand even if I tell you. But it doesn't matter. A dying man doesn't need to know so much. The Zhao family has betrayed the human clan. I just don't know if Patriarch Zhao has any last words. The winner takes all. There is nothing to say. If you really want to give me a chance, please let me go. Zhao Huaiyan shook his head, then looked at Zhao Xingyi and said, "I can't do that." Qin Yuanbai shook his head. The next moment, his aura crushed the void as a giant hand covered the two of them. Looking at that vast and mighty aura, Zhao Huayan's eyes were filled with despair, but he didn't really wait for death. Boom! Terrifying vital essence erupted. Zhao Huayan brazenly attacked Qin Yuanbai. It was just his full blow. In front of the big hand, it couldn't set off any waves. It was easy. Qin Yuanbai blasted the two of them away. In an instant, Zhao Huayan fell to the ground. In front of this power, Zhao Xingyi's body directly exploded, and a mist of blood drifted. Then, Qin Yuanbai took a step forward and pointed. Zhao Huayan's head was pierced. The patriarch of the Zhao family's eyes were unfocused, and he had completely died. On the other side, Qin Yuanbai's power shook heaven and earth. Even though they were hundreds of miles apart, the other cultivators could clearly feel it. Originally, Zhu Yin and Hu Feng thought that Zhao Huayan had escaped and felt regretful. But now that they felt this power, the two of them looked at each other and saw the same guess in each other's eyes. An elder of the sacred land had made a move. This was the only thought in their minds. It was very simple. Now in the cultivation world, all the celestials had surrendered to the Qinyuan sacred land. It could be said that, below the heaven list, there was no wild celestial who could avoid detection, unless that celestial was not in the eastern continent, not in the human clan, or else he would definitely be on the list. So, at this moment, the power of a celestial erupted. There was no doubt that an elder of the sacred land had made a move. Thinking of this, Zhu Yin breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that Zhao Huayan is dead. Sigh. The two of us joined forces and still let Zhao Huayan escape. This matter can't be justified. Hu Feng was not so optimistic. He was at the late stage of the divine martial realm, and Zhu Yin was at the middle stage of the divine martial realm. In the end, they let an early-stage divine martial realm cultivator escape. If this matter spread out, it was a small matter to lose face. If others thought that they were incompetent, it would be a real big deal. Hearing this, the smile that had just appeared on Zhu Yan's face also stiffened. Indeed, it was too early for him to be happy. If that elder came to blame them, they would be in big trouble. Just based on the aura alone, Zhu Yin wasn't sure which elder of the Holy Land would be coming. Not long after, someone stepped through the air and arrived, holding a broken corpse in his hand. When Zhu Yin and Hu Feng saw who it was, they were shocked. Then, they also saw the body in the other party's hand. Zhao Huayan. All kinds of thoughts emerged in their minds, but they did not hesitate. They stepped forward and saluted. Zhu Yin, Hu Feng, greets the supervisor angel. Zhao Huayan has been executed, and all the remaining people of the Zhao family have been killed. Qin Yuanbai looked at the two miserable people and did not say anything. Instead, he threw Zhao Huayan's body and said indifferently, "Yes, master." The two of them relaxed and immediately bowed to accept the order. Qin Yuanbai did not blame them. This allowed them to completely relax their anxious hearts. Then, two great cultivators of the divine martial realm joined the battlefield. The Zhao family, which was already at an absolute disadvantage, completely collapsed. When the experts of the Zhao family saw Zhao Huayan's body and Qin Yuanbai standing in the air, they were so scared that they wanted to kneel down and beg for mercy. Everything was done by Zhao Huayan alone. I have no intention of betraying the human clan and disobeying the orders of the sacred land. Please spare my life, Elder Qin. Yes, all of this was Zhao Huayan's idea. We are innocent. Mercy. Many experts of the Zhao family begged for mercy. Qin Yuanbai looked indifferent and said coldly, "By the order of the Qin Emperor, anyone who betrays the human clan will be punished by the barbarian tribes." As soon as he finished speaking, the people of the Zhao family were completely desperate. Barbarian tribes. Such a punishment was enough to uproot the entire Zhao family. No one could escape. Not only that, even the other forces would be implicated. On this day, the Beichuan Grand Region was shaken. The Baiyun Mansion was shaken. The Zhao family of the Beichuan Grand Region was destroyed by the Sky Patrol. Two cultivators of the divine martial realm died tragically, and all the remaining members of the Zhao family were killed. Not only that, several other families that were related to the Zhao family by marriage were also destroyed by the Sky Patrol. In just one day, in the Bayun Mansion, several cultivators of the divine martial realm, hundreds of cultivators of the spiritual martial realm, and countless others died. On this day, the Sky Patrol killed many people in the Bayun Mansion, which made countless families tremble in fear. The news spread. Once again, the cultivation world was shaken. How dare the Qianyuan sacred ground do this? How dare they do this? Barbarian tribes, what a ridiculous thing to do. Some cultivators were shocked. They couldn't believe that the Qianyuan sacred ground dared to be so inhumane and kill so many cultivators. However, most of the cultivators were terrified. They found that the Qianyuan sacred ground's order was not just for show. Now that the Zhao family was destroyed, several families were implicated. What about the next one? Which family would it be? Now everyone could see that the Qin emperor was really ruthless. He didn't care about the feelings of others at all. He had the intention of killing all the cultivators who opposed him. If they really encountered such a person, no matter how angry those cultivators were, they would inevitably feel fear. However, the movement of the Bayun Mansion didn't completely make some families despair. In the following month, in the 13 prefectures of the Great Zhao dynasty, hundreds of families were destroyed by the Sky Patrol. Hundreds of thousands of cultivators died. At this moment, all the cultivators in the world were terrified. Some of the families who originally wanted to struggle took the lead to cut ties with the remnants of the sections. Some killed the remnants of the sects and handed them over to the Sky Patrol. As a result, the remnants of the sects that gave the Qianyuan colleges a headache were destroyed. The Qin emperor's methods are really ruthless. Marquis Bayun looked at the information in his hand and shook his head with a bitter smile. He originally thought that he knew enough about Qin Shujian, but now it seemed there were still too many things he didn't understand. In the past month, the Bayun Mansion was in turmoil. Although the Sky Patrol killed the people of the families, Marquis Bayun ruled the Bayun Mansion. How could it not be affected at all? Now that the people of the Bayun Mansion are in turmoil, what should we do? Li Guang'an's face was ugly. He didn't expect that the Qianyuan sacred ground would make such a big move. It was so big that it shook the entire 13 prefectures of the Great Zhao dynasty. Originally, Li Guang'an wanted to make things difficult for Qin Shujian, but when he thought of the power of the Sky Patrol, he suppressed this idea. He couldn't afford to offend them. He was just a small guard of the Bayun Mansion. He couldn't afford to offend the Qianyuan sacred ground. It wasn't just him who couldn't afford to offend them. Even the Marquis might not dare to offend the Qianyuan sacred ground. After all, when it came to status, Marquis Bayun was only a marquis, while Qin Shujian was the human emperor. Their statuses were not on the same level. Hearing this, Marquis Bayun shook his head and said, "The Qianyuan sacred ground has killed almost all the people who should be killed. As long as the Qianyuan sacred ground stops, the turmoil in the Bayun Mansion will gradually subside. The Qin emperor is more unwilling to see the human race in turmoil than you and me. That's why he used such means to suppress all the voices of injustice. As long as everyone was frightened by the killing, then the human race would no longer be in turmoil." Such means, Marquis Bayun understood, but he couldn't do it. It was very simple. When it came to killing decisively, he could do it. But during this period of time, the Qianyuan sacred ground's actions could no longer be described as decisive. It could even be called tyranny. However, Marquis Bayun could also understand Qin Shujian's thoughts. Therefore, he didn't interfere too much. What he couldn't do, the Qin emperor could do it. In that case, he might as well let the Qin emperor do it. Immediately, Marquis Bayun looked at Li Guang'an, Su Mingyang, and the others and said in a deep voice, "Now that the human race is in a difficult situation, the God martial arts realm can be of great use. Don't pay too much attention to things during this period of time. If there is a chance, try your best to break through to the celestial being realm. If you can break through to the celestial being realm, you can play a little role in the upcoming war. Or else, when the war starts, the God martial arts realm can be destroyed with a wave of the hand." To be able to become a general of the Bayun Mansion, Li Guang'an and the others were not ordinary God martial arts realm cultivators. Each of them was at the late stage of the god martial arts realm, or even at the peak. Such people, there was hope for them to break through to the celestial being realm in the future. Especially now that the rules of heaven and earth were perfected, the spirit energy had increased greatly. It was much easier for a cultivator to break through to the celestial being realm from the god martial arts realm. Hearing this, they all nodded and said, "We understand." Several big battles. The situation was controlled by the celestial being realm cultivators. Cultivators who were not celestial beings were not qualified to intervene at all. They also understood. The god martial arts realm was indeed nothing in the four continents. In the past, it was fine when the heaven and earth restriction was not opened in the East continent. There were only a few celestial beings in the world, and the god martial arts realm was the top. But it was different now. In the major continents, there were many celestial beings. As for the god martial arts realm, the number of them was unimaginable. If they did not break through, they were destined to be eliminated. At this time, Xiao Hong cupped his hands and said, "Marquis, now that Qinyuan Academy has been established everywhere, it seems that the Qinyuan Sacred Ground intends to make cultivation methods completely public." Of course, Marquis Baiyun's eyes were a little inexplicable. In the end, he seemed to be a little emotional. The purpose of Emperor Qin is to preach to the world. Preach to the world? They looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. Preach to the world. They knew this. But what did this have to do with what the Qinyuan Academy was doing? Marquis Baiyun said, "Do you think that there are only cultivators in the world? Or that in your eyes, cultivators are the only ones you can see?" Buzz, as soon as these words came out, everyone was shaken to the core. Li Guang'an looked horrified and said in disbelief, "Marquis, do you mean that the Qinyuan Academy wants to make all the cultivation methods public and let all the humans set foot on the path of cultivation? Preach to the world." So this was what he meant by preaching to the world. He thought it was the world. It was completely different from the world that the Qinyuan Sacred Ground was talking about. Marquis Baiyun did not speak. He did not admit it, nor did he deny it. After a long time, he said slowly, "Don't stop what the Qinyuan Academy is doing. If the Qinyuan Sacred Ground wants to preach to the world, let them do it. As for success or failure, it depends on the ability of Emperor Qin." Preaching to the world. It was easy to say, but in fact it was very difficult. Cultivation methods were a problem. Talent, aptitude, and even resources were a problem. Compared to geniuses, there were more mediocre people in the human race. If there weren't so many problems, the great Zhao would have preached to the world long ago. Therefore, in Marquis Baiyun's opinion, the Qinyuan Sacred Ground's idea was good, but whether they could do this was another problem. However, if they really succeeded in preaching to the world, Marquis Baiyun was not sure whether he agreed or disagreed. He waved his hand and asked Li Guang'an and the others to leave. Marquis Baiyun suddenly said, "If the preaching to the world is successful, how much time will the demon abyss take?" 100 years at most. Zhu Bing's voice sounded, and his tone was a little inexplicable. 100 years at most. Marquis Baiyun's expression was solemn. Zhu Bing said 100 years at most, which meant that this matter might be brought forward. The arrival of the demon abyss. It was unstoppable. 100 years or a few hundred years, based on the current situation of the human race, didn't seem to make much difference. After all, there weren't many heavenly beings in the human race now, not to mention true immortals. Even if the human race was given another 1,000 years, how many true immortals could be born? It was just that the time was shortened so quickly. It was really too fast. Time is too fast. Marquis Baiyun sighed. It was too fast, but it was impossible to stop the Qinyuan Sacred Ground from preaching to the world. The voice in the sea of consciousness said, "In fact, it's not completely true. If all the human race cultivates, although it will shorten the time it takes to reach the demon abyss, it will also greatly increase the luck of the human race. In this way, the human race may be able to produce more strong masters in a short time. It's just..." In the end, Zhu Bing stopped talking. Marquis Baiyun could understand what the other party meant. No matter how many strong masters were born, it was impossible to compare with the ancient times. Even the ancient times had been defeated. The human race's current chances of winning were indeed not high. After thinking about it, Marquis Bayun also felt a little headache. Immediately, he simply stopped thinking about this problem. When the boat reached the bridge, it would cross the bridge. When the demon abyss really came, then it would come. Qianyuan's sacred ground. For more than a month, Qin Shujian had been in seclusion. It was said that he was in seclusion, but it wasn't completely true. He just sat quietly in his small courtyard for more than a month. He didn't know how much time had passed. Qin Shujian's body shook slightly, and his originally dazed eyes gradually glowed with new vigor. At this moment, millions of cultivation methods and martial arts had been completely integrated by him. In his mind, many cultivation methods and martial arts had all dissipated. Instead, there were two brand new cultivation methods and martial arts. Immediately afterward, Qin Shujian flew into the air and directly grabbed two stones that were 100 feet in size from an uninhabited mountain peak. Finally, the stone powder fell. Not long after, two flat stone steels that were 100 feet in size had been formed. Boom! The stone steels fell. They fell directly in front of the human emperor's palace. Immediately afterward, Qin Shujian used his hand as a pen and wrote something on it. Not long after, then, he saw that there were a few big words engraved on the two stone tablets. The universe Tao-seeking scripture. The human emperor's immortal slaying technique. The former was a cultivation method, while the latter was a martial art. As the few big words were carved, the two stone steels that were supposed to be made of ordinary materials became different at this moment. At the same time, the destiny of the human race shook. It seemed that the appearance of the two stone steels had caused some shocking changes. In the sea of consciousness, the heaven list flew out uncontrollably. Immediately afterward, the long river of destiny of the human race was vast and mighty, running through the entire eastern continent. Qin Shujian felt something. Looking at the destiny of the human race above his head, he said loudly, "From today onwards, the Qianyuan sacred ground will preach to the world that all humans can practice cultivation methods and martial arts, step onto the path of cultivation, and seek immortality." As soon as he finished speaking, the two stone steels shone brightly. Immediately afterward, countless light spots fell from the destiny of the human race and scattered in every corner of the eastern continent. Every light spot fell. In the end, it would turn into a stone steel that stood on the ground. At this moment, many experts in the world raised their heads to look at the sky. Soon after, they chased after the falling light spots. Zhongzhou Imperial City. Two light spots fell toward the imperial palace. Emperor Zhao raised his head and looked at the two light spots. With a wave of his hand, he took them down. The light spots dissipated. They turned into two stone steels. Many of the palace maids and eunuchs serving the palace maids and eunuchs were inevitably shocked when they saw the falling stone tablet. As for Emperor Zhao, at this moment, his gaze fell on the stone steels. Two stone steels. On one side, he wrote the universal Tao-seeking scripture. On the other side, he wrote the human emperor's immortal slaying technique. As his gaze fell on them, a piece of information quickly appeared in his mind. It was the content of the universal Tao-seeking scripture and the human emperor's immortal slaying technique. After a long time, Emperor Zhao came back to his senses from this piece of information. He couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The universal Tao-seeking scripture and the human emperor's immortal slaying technique are amazing. With these two cultivation methods and martial arts, the human race will prosper. At this moment, the destiny of the human race was vast and mighty. Emperor Zhao didn't expect that Qin Shujian could really comprehend such powerful cultivation methods and martial arts in such a short time. The universal Tao-seeking scripture. The human emperor's immortal slaying technique. In Emperor Zhao's opinion, these two cultivation methods and martial arts had reached the divine realm. However, these two cultivation methods and martial arts were incomplete. On the stone steels, only the divine martial chapter was recorded. As for the rest, it seemed to have been cut off by someone. Emperor Zhao didn't need to think to know who cut off these two cultivation methods and martial arts. Comprehending a divine realm cultivation method, He shouldn't be so shocked. After all, although divine realm cultivation methods were mysterious, as long as a heavenly being cultivator combined their own conditions, there was a high chance that they could create a complete divine realm cultivation method. But the problem was, the universal Tao-seeking scripture and the human emperor's immortal slaying technique were very mediocre. What was mediocre? It was neutral, peaceful, and impartial. Any cultivation method was actually biased. Some people could get twice the result with half the effort, while others could get twice the result with half the effort. Of course, talent was one of the reasons. But in fact, there was another problem, and that was the compatibility of the cultivation method. Some people were born unsuitable to cultivate that kind of cultivation method, but some people were born with it. One had to know. People who created cultivation techniques usually combined them with their own conditions. Therefore, the cultivation techniques they created were also the most suitable for themselves. As a result, it would create a flaw that wasn't a flaw. But in Emperor Zhao's eyes, the universal Tao-seeking scripture didn't have such a problem. This cultivation method was very mediocre. In other words, any human who cultivated it was the same. It was very mediocre. It didn't mean that the cultivation method was really trash. On the contrary, to a certain extent, mediocre was another kind of perfection. The Qianyuan sacred ground wanted to preach to the world. The most fundamental problem for all humans to embark on cultivation was the cultivation method. Now, the universal Tao-seeking scripture had appeared. In Emperor Zhao's view, the Qianyuan sacred ground had already taken the most crucial step on the road of preaching to the world. As for the human emperor's immortal slaying technique, this was an offensive martial art. Among the many divine realm cultivation methods, this martial art wasn't very outstanding. But if it was combined with the universal Tao-seeking scripture, its power would directly rise to a level. Thinking of this, Emperor Zhao couldn't help but sigh. With these two cultivation methods and martial arts, the status of the Qianyuan sacred ground is unshakable. It's just that the way Emperor Qin named it is too deliberate. Looking at the words on the stone tablet, his expression was slightly strange. The universal Tao-seeking scripture was obviously referring to the Qianyuan sacred ground. As for the human emperor's immortal slaying technique, it was even more obvious. However, Qin Shujian was tactful and didn't directly name it Emperor Qin's immortal slaying technique. Emperor Zhao could foresee these two cultivation methods and martial arts would come out, even if the Qianyuan sacred ground was destroyed in the future, or if the Qin emperor died. The names of these two would be passed down in the human clan. Unless the human clan no longer cultivated the universal Tao-seeking scripture and the emperor immortal slaying technique. Or else, it was impossible to erase the traces of the existence of these two. Qianyuan sacred ground. With the mighty fate of the human clan and the appearance of the two stone tablets, the entire Qianyuan realm was shaken. All the cultivators who stayed in the sacred ground, after noticing the commotion, they all rushed over at the same time. Not only that, even the elders of the Holy Lands who were cultivating in the emperor's palace were alerted by the commotion. At this moment, Qin Shujian had already left, leaving only the two stone tablets there. When the fate of the human clan shook just now, the voice that came out was the voice of Emperor Qin. It should be. Could it be that Emperor Qin created some powerful cultivation method that caused the fate of the human clan to shake? Many cultivators' expressions changed slightly. When they arrived at the emperor's palace, they saw the two stone tablets in front of the palace gate. Universal Tao-seeking scripture. Emperor immortal slaying technique. Looking at the words on the stone tablets, those cultivators were also stunned. They knew that Qin Shujian had created a cultivation method. It was just that they didn't expect the name of this cultivation method would be so straightforward. More and more cultivators gathered. Some of them couldn't help but spread out their divine consciousness, wanting to comprehend it. Just as many cultivators were studying the stone tablets, Yin Banqing and Fang Xinglan also suddenly appeared. They didn't pay attention to the others, and instead, their gazes directly landed on the stone tablet. Two stone tablets. There was a hell-like power spreading out. However, this power was not worth paying attention to in front of the two celestial beings. What really concerned them was, It was the content on the stone tablets. Banching looked at the stone tablets with a look of surprise and doubt. There are only names on the stone tablets, but there is no content. Could it be a will inheritance? A cultivation method passed down by will. It wouldn't be a simple cultivation method. Moreover, just by looking at the power of the two stone tablets, it was obvious that these two cultivation methods and martial arts were different. Without hesitation, Banching immediately touched the stone tablets with his divine consciousness. After a long time, only then did he completely wake up. Feeling the content in his mind, his eyes were full of amazement. What a universal Tao-seeking scripture! What an emperor immortal slaying technique! These two cultivation methods and martial arts are directly connected to the celestial beings. Once this method is released, the human race will prosper. It was also a divine conduit cultivation method. Banching suddenly realized that the divine conduit cultivation method he created was completely incomparable. He tried to circulate the universal Tao-seeking scripture. Then, his expression became even more shocked. This cultivation method can be converted to other cultivation methods at any time. Impossible? How can this be? Banching was in a daze. What did this mean? It meant that if other cultivators used the universal Tao-seeking scripture to lay a foundation, in the future, if they wanted to convert to other cultivation methods, they wouldn't need to spend time grinding bit by bit. They could directly graft other cultivation methods, and vice versa. Such a discovery. It made Banching's breathing quicken. It wasn't just him. At this moment, the breathing of the people surrounding the stone tablets also became rapid. This is a divine conduit cultivation method. There's hope for me to break through to the celestial beings. Haha, I've been begging for thousands of years, but I didn't expect to see the mystery of the celestial beings at this moment. I have no regrets in this life. Once this cultivation method is released, the Qinyuan sacred ground will definitely pass it down for generations. Many cultivators were excited, and some even had tears in their eyes. A divine conduit cultivation method. This was a divine conduit cultivation method. For many cultivators, a divine conduit cultivation method was their lifelong desire. However, it was difficult to find one. Although Qin Shujian established the Qinyuan sacred ground and preached to the world, in reality, those cultivators who were not from the top sect still hadn't seen a divine conduit cultivation method. At this moment, the universal Tao-seeking scripture was released. Only then could they truly resolve their regrets. At this moment, many cultivators had already involuntarily circulated their vital essence and converted their cultivation methods to the universal Tao-seeking scripture. On the other side, the emperor immortal slaying technique was also being comprehended by others. In the courtyard, Qin Shujian also had a faint smile on his face. The stone tablets in the Qinyuan sacred ground were the main body of the world's stone tablets. The cultivation methods and martial arts inscribed in them were also the most complete. As for the stone tablets in the East continent, he deliberately cut off the divine chapter. The purpose was very simple. Anyone who cultivated the universal Tao-seeking scripture and wanted to break through to the celestial being level would need to enter the Qinyuan sacred ground to have a chance of learning the subsequent cultivation methods. In this way, the prestige of the Qinyuan sacred ground would inevitably rise to a higher level. However, Qin Shujian was also thinking about a problem now. The universal Tao-seeking scripture and the emperor immortal slaying technique. Aren't these two names too euphemistic? Should I change them? P.S. The Qidian chapters are charged according to the number of words. The more words, the more expensive it is. The less words, the cheaper it is. Recently, some people have said that because the chapters are expensive, they look down on it. In fact, it's the same. I update 27,000 chapters a day, divided into 9 chapters and 3 chapters. There's no difference in subscription consumption. Chapter 632. At first, Qin Shujian wanted to change the names of the two cultivation methods to the Heaven Tao-seeking scripture and the Qin Emperor's immortal slaying technique. But after thinking about it, the name was too straightforward and a little shameful. So he changed it slightly. Now that the cultivation methods and martial arts had been completely released, it was impossible to change them. Regarding this, Qin Shujian shook his head. Anyway, it's about the same. No one should be so stupid as to not know how to link the two together. People were alive. There had to be some goal. Even Qin Shujian himself wasn't sure if he would be able to live forever. What if he died? Then he had to leave something behind for future generations to remember him. The simplest and most direct. It was the inheritance of cultivation methods and martial arts. Since ancient times, how many human emperors had there been? Qin Shujian estimated that there were at least 800 if not 1,000. After all, even if every human emperor was a true immortal and could live for 120,000 years, it had been at least millions of years since ancient times, or even longer. But in fact, the human race had no memory of the past human emperors. Someone as strong as the Emperor of Heaven. There were not many people who truly understood. As for the ancient Emperor Xia, it was even more so. Qin Shujian now had hope. Even if 1,000,000 years later, someone cultivated the heaven and earth Tao-seeking scripture and the human emperor's immortal slaying technique, they would still remember that this was created by the former Emperor Qin. But does the human race still have 1,000,000 years? Thinking of the impending great calamity, Qin Shujian's expression was a little inexplicable. He couldn't survive this great calamity. There was no such thing as 1,000,000 years for the human race. Then, Qin Shujian looked at his attribute panel. Soon, he found the heaven and earth Tao-seeking scripture and the human emperor's immortal slaying technique. From the attribute panel, he hadn't really started cultivating these two cultivation methods and martial arts. But in fact, Qin Shujian knew very well that he had already reached perfection in the heaven and earth Tao-seeking scripture and the human emperor's immortal slaying technique. As long as he was willing, then the heaven and earth Tao-seeking scripture could directly soar to perfection. But this way, the Guiyuan ancestral code would be useless. Because compared to the heaven and earth Tao-seeking scripture, the Guiyuan ancestral code had already reached a more comprehensive level. In other words, the origin returning ancestral canon had already developed his physical body to its limits. As for the universe Tao-seeking scripture, it was actually contained within the origin returning ancestral canon. Once he switched to cultivating the heaven and earth Tao-seeking sutra, not only would Qin Shujian's strength not increase, it might even weaken. As such, he would not cultivate this cultivation method that he had created himself. Compared to what the system had deduced, Qin Shujian knew that the heaven and earth Tao-seeking scripture that he had derived from collecting all the cultivation techniques in the world was still inferior to the ancestral scripture. However, he was confident that this cultivation method would be more profound than most spirit conduit realm cultivation methods. As for the human emperor's immortal slaying technique, there was no such problem. The so-called human emperor's immortal slaying technique was actually a supreme saber technique that Qin Shujian deduced by combining the saber techniques that he had originally cultivated and then integrating the general principles of saber techniques in the world. Subsequently, Qin Shujian looked at the source of life again. After such a period of time, the life source had officially broken through the threshold of 200 billion. Forging ancestral canon, celestial light alchemy tome. These two special martial arts had already shown signs that they could be upgraded when the life source reached 100 billion. However, Qin Shujian did not touch them. Whether it was upgrading the celestial light alchemy tome or the forging ancestral canon, for him, they were not of much use. The peak of the third realm of the Array Dao Grandmaster realm, Qin Shujian estimated that he should be able to deal with the Nirvana realm or the 10th level of the celestial being realm. But for him, even if he did not use the formation, he could still kill ordinary Nirvana realm cultivators. Even if there were more formations to assist him, his strength would not increase by much. It was better to accumulate the life source and wait until he broke through to the 6th level of the celestial being realm. At that time, his strength would increase even more. Soon, looking at the constantly beating life source, Qin Shujian estimated that it should not be long before it was upgraded. He exited from the attribute panel. He then looked at the human emperor's palace. Ever since the Qian Yuan realm recognized him as its master, in the entire small world, Qin Shujian could easily see anywhere he wanted. Is it possible for these two stone tablets to become Zubing? He suddenly had a thought, because Qin Shujian suddenly felt a strong power of faith on the stone tablets. Godslayer said faintly, "Yes, the key to Zubing lies in the power of faith. Your two stone tablets carry two imparting cultivation methods. As long as more and more people worship and cultivate, then the power of faith will gather on the main tablet through the subsidiary tablets in various places of the human race. Over time, there is a high chance that it can become Zubing." To be honest, he did not expect that Qin Shujian would really have the chance to get to Zubing. Even if it was the Thousand Mountain Blood, Godslayer did not think that Dao artifact had any hope of growing into Zubing. After all, how could Zubing be so easy to achieve? One must possess sufficient power of faith, as well as the will of the people. Only then would one be able to transform a divine armament into an ancestral armament. However, the god-slaying saber saw its past self on the stone tablet. In other words, these two stone tablets were actually the embryos of Zubing. However, whether or not they would be able to truly become ancestral armaments was uncertain. Qin Shujian smiled and said, "It would be good if the Qinyuan sacred ground could have two more Zubing. I feel that the fate of the human race is gathering, and it is getting stronger and stronger. If I'm not wrong, as long as the whole nation cultivates, the fate of the human race will become stronger." This time, the creation of the cultivation method indirectly brought about benefits that he did not expect. The first was that the appearance of the heaven and earth Tao-seeking scripture and the human emperor's immortal killing technique would cause the fate of the human race to shake. This showed these two cultivation methods and martial arts seemed to have been created for the human race. What Qin Shujian did not expect, the fate of the human race would increase greatly. At this time, in the sea of consciousness, the aura emitted by the heaven list was even more vast. Together with Godslayer, it suppressed the sea of consciousness and stabilized it. The sea of consciousness was stable. This proved that it was difficult for other people's spiritual deity attacks to shake his spiritual deity. Similarly, his spiritual deity attacks could also become more powerful. Because of this, the sea of consciousness was originally guarded by Godslayer. This Zubing swallowed the sword Qi, which made Qin Shujian's spiritual deity much stronger. Combined with the spirit severing, the power of the spiritual deity also increased a lot. Sitting in the courtyard, Qin Shujian looked up at the sky, where the long river of laws was mighty. The Qinyuan sacred ground was established. The preaching to the world had also begun. What else haven't I done, except to improve my realm? Every once in a while, he would think about what else he needed to do, because too many things had happened during this time. If he didn't tidy up, Qin Shujian was a little confused. The first problem is the Dharma Eye. I don't have any information about the chaser. In the past, I didn't know, but now I know that the Dharma Eye actually touches upon the power of laws. Therefore, the expert who left the Dharma Eye is definitely not a simple person. If I'm not wrong, the other party is at least a true immortal. But if that's the case, then there are a few problems in front of me. The first is whether the chaser is a person or an organization. But since Godslayer has never heard of the chaser, there are only two possibilities. The first is that the chaser has another name, and the second is that the chaser is at least a force from ancient times. Qin Shujian had never given up on finding out more about his pursuers. Because Xia Chao once said, the ancient human emperor had a bronze token. In other words, the chaser existed at least in ancient times. But judging from the Godslayer's ignorance, he was basically sure that the chaser came from ancient times. Qin Shujian had a hunch. The chaser must have a big secret. If he could find the chaser's inheritance, then his strength would definitely increase greatly. Unfortunately, there was no way to find this clue for the time being, because until now, there was no trace of the chaser at all. However, Qin Shujian had already planned to use his identity as the human emperor to get the entire human race to find the bronze token. It would be best if there was an effect, but if there was no effect, then there was really no other way. And this way, the bronze token would definitely be in everyone's sights. The others would be fine. If the players got it, they might not hand it over. Soon, Qin Shujian temporarily put the bronze token matter aside. The second thing should be that the various races are suppressing the human race. If the human race wants to leave the eastern continent, they still need to communicate with the other races. I'm not sure about the situation in the southern and northern continents for now. However, I can try to talk to the western continent's nine-headed dog clan. But the Black Emperor, this traitor, has sided with me. I wonder if the Dog Emperor will have any prejudice. He thought about the two races abandoning the Black Stone Condor clan. If he killed the Black Emperor, there wouldn't be this problem. But the problem was that the Black Emperor had sincerely surrendered, and Qin Shujian had no reason to reject him. After all, it would be a waste not to take a free fighter. Other than these two things, Qin Shujian realized that he didn't seem to have anything more important to do. No. Originally, he had planned to show off in front of his people by refining pills and then get a few alchemists over. But now, Qin Shujian realized that there was no need for that. All the cultivators in the world were his, and so were the alchemists. Then there was no need to waste time to show off in front of others. All of a sudden, the Qian Yuan realm shook slightly again. Immediately after, Mu Yang's incarnation appeared and said with a serious face, "Emperor Qin, there are demons outside the Qian Yuan realm attacking, causing the Qian Yuan realm to shake. You can sense it?" Qin Shujian looked surprised. He was in charge of the Qian Yuan realm, so the attacks of the demons could not be hidden from his eyes and ears. However, what Qin Shujian did not expect was the other party could also know. Mu Yang said truthfully, "The Eldar is a pure and spiritual race, born to oppose the demons. The demons are the embodiment of darkness, so I can sense the existence of the demons. And at this time, my roots have already gone deep under the Qian Yuan realm, so I can naturally sense the evil aura." "So you're saying that you can deal with the extraterrestrial demons?" Qin Shujian thought of a possibility. Mu Yang nodded and said, "Yes, the demons are the opposite of the Eldar. The Eldar can restrain them, and the demons can restrain the Eldar. It's just a matter of strength." "Well, you can leave first."
Yes.
After Mu Yang left, Qin Shujian asked, "Senior, is what he said true? Didn't they agree? Only the rules could deal with the demons. How could the Eldar deal with them?" He was not sure if it was true or not. He had to confirm it with the Godslayer. The Godslayer hesitated for a moment, then said, "There seems to be such a thing. I forgot to tell you. In fact, the Heavenly Court was once a small world, and there were powerful demons that attacked the Heavenly Court. Later on, oh, that's right. Now that I think about it, it was that old ancestor of the spirit race who stepped in and killed multiple true immortal evil fiends single-handedly. You have to know that the demons are very difficult to deal with. Once infected, it will be like maggots attached to the bones. However, the Patriarch of the Eldar was not affected at all. The human emperor seems to have said that the Eldar and the demons are mutually reinforcing and restraining each other. The memory was too long ago. If Qin Shujian had not mentioned it, he would not have remembered it. The main problem was still, the human emperor had just casually mentioned it, so the Godslayer did not pay too much attention to it. Qin Shujian was silent for a moment. It was good news that the Eldar could deal with the demons. After all, the Qian Yuan realm was only a small world. It was not impossible for it to be invaded by demons. If there was a powerful Eldar in charge, it could make the Qian Yuan realm more stable. Unfortunately, Mu Yang has not even reached the Saint realm. His strength is still too weak. If he wants to be useful, he has to at least break through to the 7th level of the celestial being. Because of the shaking of the Qian Yuan realm, all the cultivators in the Qian Yuan realm were startled awake. They had not encountered the demons. They were not aware of the existence of the demons. Now that the Qian Yuan realm was shaking, it was an unknown fear for these cultivators. Seeing this, Qin Shujian's 10,000-foot-tall Dharma body immediately attracted everyone's attention. "May I ask what happened to the Qian Yuan realm? Why is it shaking?" Ji Yuanliang said in a deep voice. Hearing this, the others were also waiting for Qin Shujian's answer. Qin Shujian did not hide anything and said lightly, "The Qian Yuan realm is in the extraterritorial void. There are demons in the extraterritorial void. Now the demons are attacking the Qian Yuan realm. However, the Qian Yuan realm is stable. Such attacks will not cause any impact. You don't have to panic. After that, the Dharma body dissipated. The others looked at each other. Demons from the extraterritorial void? For them, this news was completely unexpected. Even Ji Yuanliang and other celestial being experts, they had never heard of the extraterritorial void. They had heard of the demons. They were products of the demon abyss. They were not sure if the extraterritorial void had anything to do with the demon abyss. Fortunately, the Qian Yuan realm did not shake for long before it regained its calm. Seeing this, the others were relieved. On the other side, under the influence of the human clan's luck, the stone tablet appeared in all the Qian Yuan colleges and randomly landed anywhere in the eastern continent. It was spring plowing. Many commoners were busy farming. However, the human clan's luck was vast and mighty, causing these people to stop what they were doing and look up at the sky. As a world with cultivators, although these commoners were mortals, they were not surprised by the occasional miraculous occurrences. An old farmer opened his eyes and looked sideways at the person beside him, saying, "Is this the voice of the Qin Emperor?" The Qin Emperor. To be honest, these people were unfamiliar with this name, but they were also familiar with it. So they were familiar with it. It was because of the information transmitted to them when the human clan's luck shook. Compared to Qin Shujian, the ordinary people knew more about the Zhao Emperor. After all, the imperial court ruled the world, and the Zhao Emperor was the supreme existence. The people might not know about the cultivators and who was the most powerful in the world, but they definitely knew which country they were from and who the Saint Emperor was. Look, there's something left behind. Sigh. It seems to be a stone tablet. Quick, let's go and take a look. It might be some treasure. As the stone tablet fell, the people were stunned for a moment. Then, they threw away the tools in their hands and ran toward the stone tablet. A divine item fell from the sky. It might be some incredible treasure. If that was the case, if they could get it, it might be a great benefit. They came in front of the stone tablet. Someone looked at the words on the stone tablet with a puzzled expression. Is there anyone who can read? Do you know what's written on it? Sigh, I don't know. What's written on it? I don't know. The onlookers looked at the stone tablet with confusion and doubt in their eyes. However, some people looked at the words on the stone tablet and touched it involuntarily. However, as soon as their hands touched it, the person fell to the ground and fainted. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people turned pale with fright. Oh no, it's a demon. Everyone, back away. Is the second son of the Zhang family dead? Quick, go and get a doctor. Those people hurriedly carried the fainted farmer away. The remaining people looked at the stone tablet. Their eyes were full of fear, but they couldn't help but be curious. Similar situations, they appeared one after another in the eastern continent. Whenever people touched the stone tablet, they would involuntarily faint. But it wouldn't take long for them to wake up again. And the people who woke up, memories of cultivation methods and martial arts would appear in their minds. Just like that, the two cultivation methods and martial arts, the universal Tao-seeking scripture and the human emperor's immortal slaying technique, were directly spread among the human race. The universal Tao-seeking scripture and the human emperor's immortal slaying technique. Looking at the stone tablet in front of him, Lu Qinghong's eyes flickered. From other people's mouths, he knew that the martial arts recorded on the stone tablet were at the divine level. But because the cultivation method was incomplete, it only stopped at the divine martial technique. It was said that the final divine martial technique could only be learned in the Qinyuan sacred ground. But these were not important. What was important was, what was recorded on the stone tablet were peerless cultivation methods and martial arts. That's right. For the players, the cultivation methods and martial arts on the stone tablet were the best of the best. At least for the players at this stage. It was almost impossible to obtain such cultivation methods and martial arts. Thinking of the rumors, Lu Qinghong looked at the stone tablet in front of him, and his eyes gradually became fiery. I'm only cultivating a mid-level, spiritual level cultivation method now. Once I reach the 6th level of the spiritual martial realm, it's basically the end. At that time, I'll have to find a higher level cultivation method to replace it. If I can cultivate the universal Tao-seeking scripture, then I won't have to worry about the cultivation method of the celestial being. In the past, I would have to do a lot of tasks to get a cultivation method of this level. Now it's out in the open for people to learn. It's surprising. Although he was emotional, Lu Qinghong wouldn't refuse such a good thing. The cultivation method in the game. It wasn't as simple as a simple game cultivation method. It could be used in reality. In other words, if he could get the universal Tao-seeking scripture here, then in reality, he could cultivate to the divine martial realm without having to worry about the cultivation method. And if he could enter the Qinyuan sacred ground in the future, there was also a chance to get the follow-up cultivation method. In other words, the cultivation method of the celestial being would be complete. Thinking of this, Lu Qinghong immediately sent his divine sense down. Soon, everything about the universal Tao-seeking scripture appeared in his mind. What an exquisite cultivation method! It's really not something that the cultivation method I'm currently cultivating can compare to. Looking at the cultivation method in his mind, Lu Qinghong had a faint smile on his face. Immediately after, he was trying to transform the cultivation method he was cultivating into the universal Tao-seeking scripture. White light appeared. Lu Qinghong looked at the surrounding scene with a blank expression. He recognized that this was the place where he was bound to the resurrection point. Who am I? What happened? How did I die? Lu Qinghong was dumbfounded by the 3 consecutive questions. Soon, he recalled what had happened to him. I remember that I seemed to have cultivated the universal Tao-seeking scripture and then resurrected. Could it be that there was a problem with the cultivation? Looking at his attribute panel, Lu Qinghong fell into doubt. Immediately after, he operated the cultivation method again. Bang! His body exploded. After a long time, Lu Qinghong was resurrected. At this moment, his face was as dark as ink and extremely ugly. What's going on? Why can't I cultivate the universal Tao-seeking scripture? Could it be that this cultivation method can't be cultivated at all? But that's impossible. Why can other humans cultivate it, but not me? Lu Qinghong was about to go crazy. He died twice for no reason and dropped 2 realms. He fell directly from the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm to the 1st level of the spiritual martial realm. Just a little more. He was about to return to the real martial realm. Lu Qinghong simply couldn't accept such a change. If there was a problem with the cultivation method, there were so many people in the Eastern continent who cultivated the universal Tao-seeking scripture. Why was there nothing wrong with it? If there was a problem with the cultivation method, it shouldn't be him who died. Besides, this cultivation method was created by Emperor Qin. How could there be a problem? He doubted himself. Lu Qinghong then tried to cultivate again. Bang! White light flashed. He was resurrected. At this moment, Lu Qinghong withdrew his thoughts. Looking at the realm that had fallen to the 10th level of the true martial realm, he was 100% sure that there was definitely a problem with the universal Tao-seeking scripture. Suddenly, he thought of the other players. There was no reason. Lu Qinghong exited the game on the spot and then logged into the players' forum that he hadn't visited for a long time. Now, the forum was completely in an uproar. All kinds of posts were flying around. Cultivating the universal Tao-seeking scripture. I died 5 times for no reason. Is there any big shot who succeeded in cultivating it? Give me some advice. Is there anyone who succeeded in cultivating the universal Tao-seeking scripture? Come and have a chat with me. What's going on? Is the universal Tao-seeking scripture poisonous? I died 3 times. Is there anyone who is more miserable than me? Let me be happy. The posts were densely packed. Almost every second, there would be new posts popping up. But the titles, without exception, were all inseparable from the universal Tao-seeking scripture. Seeing this, Lu Qinghong's heart sank. Then he clicked on a random post. First, the original poster talked about his tragic cultivation experience, and then there were a bunch of comments below. First post. I can only say that those who understand the universal Tao-seeking scripture understand it. Second post. Why don't the original poster ask Emperor Qin about this question? Third post. F***CK. There's definitely something wrong with this stupid cultivation method. We players die as soon as we cultivate it, but those NPCs don't have any problems cultivating it. Fourth post. I just dropped to the 7th level of the true martial realm. I have to go leveling up. By the way, Can you tell me how to get to the Qinyuan sacred ground? Fifth post. If you want to go to the Qinyuan sacred ground, let's form a team. Sixth post. The Liangshan chieftain is still the same Liangshan chieftain. I and Qin Haodong are irreconcilable. Seventh post. Just like Lu Qinghong, all the players who cultivated the universal Tao-seeking scripture exploded and died at the same time. Ever since the cultivation method came out, more than half of the total number of players had dropped levels due to the practice of cultivation methods. There was no other way. Who didn't want to learn the divine realm cultivation method? In addition, there was no threshold to learn the universal Tao-seeking scripture. Almost every place had a cultivation method stone tablet, so everyone could learn it. So, it wasn't just the native humans who cultivated the universal Tao-seeking scripture. Many players had also obtained this cultivation method. With high-level cultivation methods, naturally, the players changed their cultivation method immediately. Then, they exploded. Some cautious players only died once and stopped cultivating. However, some players were stubborn and died more than 4 or 5 times. They were lucky. Players who liked to browse the forum discovered the problem with the cultivation method before they started cultivating. That was why they didn't step on the mine. But the problem was, who would go offline to browse the forum? The first thing they did when they obtained the cultivation method was to cultivate it. On this day, the players were furious. A large number of players were killed. Coupled with the fact that the native humans had no problem cultivating, everyone understood that this was definitely Qin Shujian's conspiracy. Or else, why was it that the others were fine while the players exploded and died? Regarding this, those players who didn't cultivate the cultivation method were fine. However, the players who exploded and died because of this were furious. Half a month later, a large number of players gathered in the Liangshan spiritual domain. They wanted to seek justice from the Qinyuan sacred ground, the Qinyuan realm. In the Qinyuan palace, Yin Banqing cupped his hands and said, "Qin Shihuang, in the past half a month, a large number of mutants have gathered in the Liangshan spiritual domain because of the Qinkuan Tao-seeking scripture. At this moment, there are already tens of millions of people, and looking at the trend, there is a possibility that the number will increase day by day. If this continues, I'm afraid that things won't be good." In his opinion, with the ability of the mutants, it was naturally impossible for them to forcibly break into the Qinyuan realm. However, if the Qinyuan realm didn't open for a long time, those mutants who had gathered together would then set their sights on other places, including the various Qinyuan academies. At that time, it would be a big problem. Now that the mutants had gathered, they didn't move because their anger was focused on the Qinyuan sacred ground. They didn't have time to care so much. However, there was a time limit to this rage. Once it was delayed for a long time, it would cause a qualitative change. Qin Shujian's expression didn't change. He said lightly, "Don't worry about the mutants. Send a message on behalf of Bin Huang. We will give them an explanation in 3 days." Yes. Yin Banqing nodded slightly. Then he asked uncertainly, "Qin Shihuang, is there really a problem with the Qinkuan Tao-seeking scripture?" He was very careful when he said this. But if this problem wasn't clarified, Yin Banqing also couldn't sleep or eat well, because he had already switched to the Qinkuan Tao-seeking scripture. If there really was a problem with this technique, then he would be embarrassed. Yin Banqing wasn't the only one who was concerned. The other elders and deacons of the sacred ground all looked at Qin Shujian, wanting to know the answer from him. Qin Shujian said, "There is no problem with the Qinkuan Tao-seeking scripture. It's just that this technique is only suitable for us humans to cultivate. Although the mutants are no different from humans, they are actually different from humans. Therefore, there will be problems with their cultivation. It's not just the mutants. Even if other foreign races cultivate the Qinkuan Tao-seeking scripture, they will explode and die. Because this cultivation technique is a human cultivation technique. How could other races have the right to cultivate it? The Qinkuan Tao-seeking scripture. It was an inheritance technique recognized by the fate of the human race, the non-human race. Naturally, they were not qualified to cultivate it. As long as the human race existed, the fate of the human race would not allow outsiders to successfully cultivate the Qinkuan Tao-seeking scripture. Unless, if the human race was destroyed, then outsiders would have a chance to successfully cultivate the Qingkuan Dao-seeking scripture. Hearing this, Embark and the others immediately felt relieved. As long as there was no problem with the technique. As for why outsiders would explode and die from cultivating it, it had nothing to do with them. Besides, this was a human technique. If outsiders dared to covet the human technique, they deserved to die. Then, Qin Shujian said, in the next few days, pay close attention to the movements of the Liang Mountain Spirit Domain. If any mutants dare to make a move, immediately suppress them. If there is no movement, ignore them for the time being. Just pass on Bun Huang's words to them. We understand. Embark and the others accepted the order. In the outside world, there were already tens of millions of players gathered in the Liang Mountain Spirit Domain. Do you know how to enter the Qinyuan realm? It's not good for so many of us to gather here. If the Qinyuan realm doesn't open, we'll go and destroy the other branches of the Yuan sect. Anyway, those branches were founded by the old thief. Destroying them will vent our anger. That's right. Many players were noisy. Unable to find the entrance to the Qinyuan realm, the players who were already angry became even more irritable. Soon, thus, some people set their sights on the various branches of the Yuan sect. In their opinion, the Qinyuan sacred ground was founded by Qin Shujian, and the Yuan sect was also founded by him. If they couldn't find the owner, they would vent their anger on the branches of the Yuan sect. Anyway, for them, destroying a few branches and killing some people was no big deal. It was just a game anyway. Who hadn't killed an NPC before? At most, they just didn't kill that many. Just as the other players were thinking about this, the void vibrated. The Qinyuan realm opened. Several Holy Land elders stepped out from the crowd. When they saw the innumerable number of players below them, their expressions turned grim. Ants could kill an elephant. Even a divine-level cultivator was likely to die if he was besieged by so many players. Of course, if a divine-level cultivator wanted to leave, it would be difficult for these players, who were at most in the spirit martial realm, to stop him. Qin Yuanbai looked at the numerous players with an expressionless face and shouted with a deep voice, "Pass down the order of Qin Shihuang. Don't be impatient. 3 days later, Qin Shihuang will meet you and give you a satisfactory answer. But before that, if anyone dares to cause trouble in the Liangshan spiritual realm without permission, don't blame us for being ruthless." As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying aura erupted from the 6 divine-level cultivators. It was vast and mighty, and the void was slightly distorted. It also made the players below change their expressions. But when they thought of so many teammates around them, the fear that had just risen in the hearts of the players disappeared without a trace. What was there to be afraid of? They had so many people on their side. Why would they be afraid of a divine-level boss? If they really fought, even a divine-level boss would be torn apart. However, Qin Yuanbai and the others didn't intend to reply to the players. After conveying Qin Shujian's words, they returned to the Qinyuan realm. As long as the players didn't cause trouble, they didn't care so much about the others. In the Qinyuan realm, Fang Xinglan sighed and said, "How do you think the Qin Emperor will solve this matter? I think the players are really angry this time. In such a short period of time, there are more than 10 million of them. Furthermore, I've received news that even more mutants are heading this way. If so many players really riot, it won't be easy to deal with them." Although the players' strength was not good, but that was only in a single sense. Tens of millions of physical invulnerability cultivators and spirit god cultivators gathered together. The threat they posed was not ordinary. If so many cultivators really riot, it would be difficult for the divine-level cultivators to suppress them. After all, although the divine-level cultivators were powerful, they had not reached the level of being invincible in the world. Divine-level cultivators were also human, and they also had their limits. If so many players really attacked the Qinyuan realm, Fang Xinglan had to think of a way to deal with it to be safer. Qin Yuanbai said faintly, "Although there are many players, they are just a mob. Since the Qin Emperor has given us 3 days, we will just listen to him. There is no need to think so much." "Brother Qin is really open-minded," Cui Huai said with a faint smile. Since Qin Yuanbai joined the Qinyuan sacred ground, he had become the loyal henchman of the Qin Emperor. The change was so fast. It was very different from his original identity as the sect master of the Nine Palaces sect. In the courtyard, Qin Shujian sat there quietly and did not move. When he created the heaven and earth Tao-seeking scripture, he had long thought that this would happen. At present, the average strength of the players was not very strong. The so-called threat. In Qin Shujian's view, it was not a big problem. The reason why he gave 3 days. It was because his source of life had reached a critical point. He had a hunch that he would break through in these 2 days. This hunch, it was not a groundless guess. The whim of the strong could foresee many things that were about to happen. In particular, Qin Shujian was now the human emperor. With the blessing of the human race's fate, the accuracy of this kind of premonition would undoubtedly become higher. Previously, he had been suppressing his realm. He had been constantly expanding his foundation. He also had many guesses about the cultivation method to improve his source of life. But no matter how many guesses, without being tested by facts, it could not be accurate. So, when this day really came, Qin Shujian was also a little excited. Chapter 633. 2 days later, Qin Shujian sat quietly in the courtyard. His body did not sway at all. Finally, when the source of life reached a critical point, in his heart, there was a surge of enlightenment. When he looked at the attribute panel again, the Guiyuan ancestral cannon had already shown a plus sign that it could be upgraded. It's finally here. Qin Shujian smiled faintly. Then, his mind fell on it. Upgrade. In an instant, the source of life was emptied. At the same time, the Guiyuan ancestral cannon had transformed from the 5th level of the divine chapter to the 6th level of the divine chapter. When the cultivation technique was breaking through, an endless force surged from his body. One by one, the acupoints were opened. Boom! An extremely terrifying aura erupted from Qin Shujian's body. At this moment, the Qian Yuan realm trembled violently. What's going on? Are there foreign demons attacking the Qian Yuan realm again? Not good. The cultivators in the Qian Yuan realm were alarmed again. Several sacred ground elders came out of the human emperor's palace. Everyone's expression was extremely solemn. They originally thought that foreign demons were attacking the Qian Yuan realm, but when they walked out of the human emperor's palace, only then did they realize. This aura did not come from outside the Qian Yuan realm. It came from inside the Qian Yuan realm. Fang Xinglan looked into the distance in astonishment and said uncertainly, "That direction seems to be where Yuanzong is." "That's right." Yin Banqing nodded slightly. Suddenly, the few of them fell silent. At this time, Yuanzong was emitting an aura that shook the entire Qian Yuan realm. Such a change. If it wasn't for Qin Shihuang, no one else would have the ability to do so. Qin Yuanbai said solemnly, "It seems that Qin Shihuang's cultivation has broken through again. That's why it caused such a big commotion." In his opinion, the stronger Qin Shujian was, the better. The stronger the opponent was, the more powerful the Qian Yuan sacred ground would be. However, Ji Yuanliang looked puzzled. Qin Shihuang is already a supreme master of the Nirvana realm. If he breaks through again, he should be a true immortal. Could it be that Qin Shihuang is breaking through to become an immortal at this moment? Thinking of this possibility, his expression changed drastically again. The others were also shocked. However, very soon, Yin Banqing shook his head and said, "Although we have never seen a true immortal before, judging by the current situation, it is unlikely that he has broken through to the true immortal stage." True immortal. In their eyes, this was the pinnacle of cultivation. If he reached that level, it would definitely be more powerful than the one in front of him. Yin Banqing had never seen a true immortal before, but he was sure of it. Hearing this, the others nodded in agreement. Subsequently, Qin Yuanbai and the others pacified the alarmed cultivators before sending them back. It was fine as long as there weren't extraterrestrial demons attacking. Others, these were all minor problems. Since the Qin Emperor was breaking through, they didn't dare disturb him. If the breakthrough failed, he vented his anger. No one could bear this anger. In the courtyard, in just a few breaths of time, Qin Shujian's body had undergone earth-shaking changes. There were originally 13,200 acupoints. Under the impact of this mighty force, it directly opened to 36,500. At this moment, boundless power spread out. Although Qin Shujian was sitting in the courtyard motionlessly, he seemed to be able to suppress the entire Qinyuan world. In the sea of consciousness, Godslayer was shocked. Everything happened so suddenly that he didn't even have time to react. He broke through? He just sat there for 2 days and directly broke through. And if he broke through, then so be it. But this power, it made Godslayer feel that it wasn't as simple as breaking through to the 6th level of the celestial being. It was more like becoming an immortal on the spot. Did he really just break through to the 6th level of the celestial being? Godslayer fell into self-doubt. At this moment, Qin Shujian had completely woken up from the breakthrough. With the opening of 36,500 star acupoints, his power had reached the perfect level of Zhou Tian. On his body, there were endless stars shining brightly, but soon, the starlight was restrained. However, everything in the courtyard, under the influence of this power, had already undergone some subtle changes. Phew! Qin Shujian raised his head and exhaled. In an instant, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. A bolt from the blue. Rumble. Godslayer said in a daze, Little Qin Shi, what realm have you broken through to now? Realm? Qin Shujian looked at his attributes and said with a smile, 6th level of the celestial being? 6th level of the celestial being? The god-slaying saber was stunned again. Really? Was it really the 6th level of the celestial being? I've seen a lot. Don't fool me. With the breakthrough in cultivation, Qin Shujian was in a good mood. He ignored Godslayer. Instead, he observed the changes in his body. When his cultivation broke through to the 6th level of the celestial being, the star acupoints in his body directly transformed from 13,200 to 36,500. And every star acupoint, they were all the size of his original expansion. This was also proof from the side. Qin Shujian's original guess was not wrong. He worked hard to expand his foundation. Then, he would accumulate life force and make a big breakthrough. He had a premonition. This time, he broke through to the 6th level of the celestial being. In fact, it was many times stronger than before when he broke through to the 6th level of the celestial being directly without accumulating a foundation. 36,500 star acupoints, complete 6th level of the celestial being. Since the breakthrough is the peak, the life force is impeccable. Qin Shujian had a smile on his face. Every time he used the life force to upgrade, he would directly upgrade to the peak state of a realm. In other words, although he had just broken through to the 6th level of the celestial being, he had actually reached the level of complete 6th level of the celestial being. Taking another step forward, that was the 7th level of the celestial being. Subsequently, Qin Shujian took out the heaven list again, and the attributes related to him were also revealed. Name: Qin Shujian race, human age, 31 realm, 6th level of the celestial being combat strength, 73,000 talent evaluation. Excellent, my combat strength has reached 73,000. Qin Shujian nodded slightly, very satisfied with this change. As for the Godslayer, impossible. Impossible. How could your combat power reach 73,000? He was going crazy. 6th level of the celestial being, 73,000 combat strength? The Godslayer suspected that he had seen wrongly, but when he looked carefully, that 73,000 combat strength was still extremely dazzling. In an instant, the Godslayer felt that he was going blind. It was really 73,000. If I remember correctly, the strongest celestial being in the ancient times only had a combat strength of 35,000 when he was at the 7th level of the celestial being. When he reached the 10th level of the celestial being, he only had 120,000 combat strength. That's impossible. It must be because I'm still asleep. That's impossible. The Godslayer was in a mess. The strongest celestial being in the ancient times only had 35,000 combat strength. When the other party was at the 6th level of the celestial being, his combat strength was at most around 25,000. 25,000 for one person. 73,000 for one person. It was a difference of nearly 3 times. The Godslayer had always thought that he had overestimated Qin Shujian, but every time the other party did something, it refreshed his understanding. This time, it directly caused this Zhu being to fall into self-doubt. The shock towards the Godslayer. Qin Shujian was also very satisfied. To be honest, when he saw his combat strength, he was also shocked. At the same time, he was also more satisfied with the heaven lists function. Every time he broke through, the cultivator would have an illusion that he was very strong. But as for how strong they were, to what extent? But there was no complete concept. But after having the heaven list, the basic change in combat strength could be seen very clearly. Breaking through from the 5th level of the celestial being to the 6th level of the celestial being, my combat strength directly doubled. As for why it increased so much, it should be because my foundation is more solid. If I can break through to the 7th level of the celestial being, my combat strength can at least break through the 100,000 mark. This time, Qin Shujian wanted to stand in front of the Demon Emperor and the others and loudly say that everyone present was trash. He also wanted to go to the Imperial City. He wanted to have a good fight with the strongest person of the human race. But soon, Qin Shujian extinguished this thought. One should not be too arrogant. Although 73,000 combat strength, coupled with all his skills, was very likely to be able to hang the Demon Emperor and other elites up and beat them up. But nothing was absolute. If he really encountered a Nirvana elite who went berserk, it would be very awkward. Thinking of the rumor that a peak Nirvana could be comparable to a true immortal, Qin Shujian could not help but ask, "Senior, you said before that after a true immortal transforms into an immortal body, his strength will be very strong?" Then, I have 70,000 combat strength now. If I break through to the 7th level of the celestial being, I will definitely reach 100,000 combat strength. Under such circumstances, is it still possible to fight against a true immortal? If it was in the past, he would not ask how strong a true immortal was. After all, it was an existence that he could not afford to offend. But it was different now. Qin Shujian felt that he seemed to be able to arm wrestle a true immortal. The premise was that he had to know how strong the other party was. Oh, you mean a true immortal? Godslayer was a little dazed. After being stunned for a while, he forced himself to come back to his senses. He thought for a while. Godslayer said, "The biggest difference between a true immortal and those below is the immortal body. Once a powerhouse of this level breaks through, his ethereal force will also transform, metamorphosing into an even stronger existence. That kind of power is called immortal force. Immortal force is completely above ethereal force. If you want to fight against a true immortal, you have to at least be able to resist immortal force." Immortal force? Qin Shujian heard a name that was both familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. The God-slaying saber said, "Any trace of immortal core power requires more than 10 times the amount of ethereal core power to counteract it. That is to say, for elites with 100,000 combat power, true immortals with immortal core power can easily crush those below true immortals. Only if your combat strength is much higher and the ethereal force in your body is abundant can you slowly wear down the immortal force and fight against a true immortal." He seemed to know that he had said too much. Godslayer thought for a while. He decided to put it in simpler terms. To put it bluntly, a true immortal has a combat strength of 100,000. If you want to fight against a true immortal, you have to have a combat strength of at least 150,000 and above, not including the difference in precepts. A true immortal is very strong. The so-called powerhouses who can fight against a true immortal are just fighting. If you want to really kill a true immortal, you have to rely on many factors. After all, the strength of the immortal body alone is not something that can be broken by ordinary Taoist artifacts. Godslayer said calmly. Hearing this, Qin Shujian finally understood the situation. To put it bluntly, it was difficult to fight against a true immortal. The first step was to have a combat strength of more than 150,000. The second step was to have a divine weapon that could kill a true immortal. The third step, it would be best if the true immortal was seriously injured and disabled. Qin Shujian thought for a while. He now met the second criteria. With the Godslayer, it should not be a problem to break through the immortal body's defense. As for the first step, it was a lot worse. However, he had the Heaven List, a treasure that gathered the fortune of the human race. It should be able to lower the standard. But even if it was lowered, it was impossible to lower it by much. Qin Shujian estimated. If he wanted to fight against a true immortal, he had to have a combat strength of at least 120,000. And the true immortal he had to deal with was the weakest one. Thinking of this, Emperor Qin could not help but exclaim, "A true immortal is really too strong." Of course, Godslayer continued and said with a sneer, "Although there are existences above precepts, for the creatures of heaven and earth, a true immortal is the peak of the entire cultivation realm. Those who can become a true immortal are all amazing figures. Hard work, opportunity, and talent are all indispensable. It takes tens of thousands of years of cultivation to reach this realm. It is not something that can be easily defeated." From the topic of true immortals, the god-slaying saber regained the confidence to talk to Qin Shujian. "You are now in the 6th tier of the celestial being and have a combat strength of 73,000. But in front of a true immortal, that is also trash." Thinking of this, Godslayer felt much better. However, his good mood did not last long. Qin Shujian said gloomily, "So I have to break through to the 7th tier of the celestial being to deal with a true immortal. It is indeed quite difficult." Godslayer did not reply. He suddenly did not want to talk to the other party. Qin Shujian felt even better after casually rebuking the god-slaying saber. Then, through the core of the Qinyuan realm, he had already seen the scene of the outside world. "There are quite a lot of players, but it's time for me to appear." The vast Liangshan spiritual realm. It was about to be occupied by players. It was not a good idea to delay like this. So, Qin Shujian planned to go out and meet these people in person. Outside, many players gathered together. The news given by the Qinyuan sacred ground was 3 days later. Now, only 2 days had passed, and many players were already impatient. A mob. Chao Hong looked at the noisy players and shook his head with a disdainful smile. In his opinion, players were the most undisciplined. Now there were tens of millions of people, but they did not have the momentum that tens of millions of people should have. For this, Chao Hong was both disdainful and helpless in his heart. If he could integrate so many players, then even defeating a celestial being boss would not be a big problem. But tens of millions of players, how could it be so easy to subdue them? Not to mention him. Even the top players in the game did not have the ability to make so many players listen to their orders. After all, even the biggest tycoon family in the real world, there was no other way. He was able to bring out resources that satisfied so many players. However, Chao Hong did not think that so many players could do such a big thing. As long as he put some pressure on the Qinyuan sacred ground and let Qin Shi Huang give a reasonable explanation and compensation, that would be enough. It's best to dig out a divine technique from the Qinyuan sacred ground. Then there will be no problem in cultivating. Chao Hong thought to himself. This matter was caused by the heaven and earth Tao-seeking scripture. If he wanted to calm it down, he could only start with the technique. So, in Chao Hong's opinion, the simplest, most direct, and most effective way for Qin Shujian to calm the player's anger was to take out the technique of the Qinyuan sacred ground. On the other side, Lu Qinghong's anger had subsided a little. He looked at his teammates and said lightly, "Brother Chao, what do you think Qin Shi Huang will do?" "It's nothing more than taking out the technique." Chao Hong did not hide anything and told him his guess. Hearing this, Lu Qinghong nodded slightly and said, "Brother Chao thinks the same as me. Although we have a lot of people now, as long as the Qinyuan sacred ground takes out some techniques, many people will disperse. There's no other way." Chao Hong shook his head. There was nothing to say about a motley crew. At this time, he also shifted his gaze to other locations. Among the tens of millions of players, there were at least tens of thousands of teams. The leaders of these teams were also meeting each other to discuss how to deal with the Qinyuan sacred ground. For this, Chao Hong and Lu Qinghong were completely lazy to participate. The so-called negotiation. In fact, it was all nonsense. Although they were chatting well now, if there were really benefits, they would fall out in an instant. Immediately, Lu Qinghong laughed again and said, "Speaking of which, Qin Shi Huang seems to have never compromised with the players. I'd like to see what his concession will be like. You're a little perverted. Chao Hong glanced at him. On the other side, the battle was breaking out. Some players couldn't help but encourage some players to attack the other forces in the Liangshan spiritual domain. Therefore, it was inevitable that they would encounter the Sky Patrol. For these battles, most people were too lazy to care. Their goal was the Qianyuan sacred ground. As for the other forces, even if they broke through, there were so many people. How much could they gain? If they dropped a level because of this, it was not worth it. The Qianyuan sacred ground was the one that was really rich. Another half a day passed. Just as the players' hearts were disappearing little by little, the Qianyuan sacred ground opened. The extremely rich heaven and earth spirit Qi turned into a long river and rushed over. Qin Shujian, dressed in a green robe, slowly walked out of it. In an instant, boundless power suppressed the void. At this time, all the noise of the players quieted down. Looking at the many players below, Qin Shujian stood with his hands behind his back and said lightly, "Bin Huang is already here. If you have anything to say, you can say it now." His voice was calm, but it contained a faint pressure that entered the ears of all the players. Qin Shi Huang. A name emerged in everyone's mind. For many people, this was the biggest boss in the Eastern continent. Many people had fantasized about defeating this boss. But at this moment, when they saw him in person, they couldn't help but feel a trace of fear. But when they saw their teammates around them, the trace of fear in their hearts quickly dissipated. There were so many of them. What was there to be afraid of? After the scene calmed down, a player flew into the air and appeared in front of Qin Shujian. Airborne realm. Seeing the appearance of this player, Qin Shujian raised his eyebrows slightly. At this stage of the players, most of them were between the physical invulnerability realm and the spiritual god realm. Only a few people could reach the airborne realm, and there were so many players here. This player took the lead to stand out. It could be seen that this person was quite famous among the players. Greetings, Qin Shi Huang. Facing Qin Shujian, Cheng Wang still didn't show any disrespect. No matter what, the other party was also a top powerhouse in the Eastern continent. Among the human race, only Zhao Huang could stand shoulder to shoulder with Qin Shi Huang. In the face of such a powerhouse, he still gave a certain amount of respect. Qin Shujian said lightly, "If you have something to say, just say it." I believe that Qin Shi Huang should also know the purpose of our visit this time. Since the Qianyuan sacred ground preaches to the world, the Qinkuan Dao-seeking scripture is for the world to cultivate, but now there is a problem with the cultivation method. I wonder if Qin Shi Huang has any explanation for this matter? Cheng Wang looked at Qin Shujian and said in a clear voice, "There is no need to explain." The Qinkuan Dao-seeking scripture was created by Bin Huang for the human race. Naturally, only the human race can cultivate it. You are outsiders, so it is normal that you can't cultivate it. Even so, since the Qianyuan sacred ground has spread the cultivation method, they should make this matter public, instead of keeping us in the dark and causing many casualties. Cheng Wang's expression didn't change. He said in a deep voice, Qin Shi Huang should give an explanation. He faced Qin Shujian directly. He had great confidence in his heart. Normally, Cheng Wang wouldn't dare to be so arrogant. After all, he was only a cultivator in the 5th level of the spiritual martial realm. The other party was a powerhouse in the nirvana realm. It would be easy for him to kill him. But now, there were tens of millions of players behind him. Cheng Wang wasn't afraid that Qin Shujian would make a move. The other party wouldn't dare to make a move at this time. If he really did make a move, the other players would definitely go berserk. On the contrary, Cheng Wang was sure that after this incident, his reputation would be completely spread among the players. It would be convenient to earn a reputation. It would be much more convenient to do things in the future. In the short time that he talked to Qin Shujian, many thoughts had emerged in Cheng Wang's mind. In the face of questioning, Qin Shujian's eyes were cold. He looked at Cheng Wang and said indifferently, "Are you questioning Bin Huang?" "I don't dare. I just want to seek justice for everyone." "What a good justice." "Then, according to your opinion, what is justice?" The Qin Emperor is the human emperor of the human race. Although we are guests from beyond the heavens, we still respect the Qin Emperor. However, we have suffered many casualties because of the heaven and earth Tao-seeking scripture. This problem has to be resolved. The Qianyuan sacred ground collects cultivation methods from all over the world and wants to spread them to the world. How can they leave us alone? You know, when the human race left the East continent in the past, we also contributed a lot, Cheng Wang said. Qin Shujian said, then in your opinion, what should Bin Huang do? As long as Qin Shi Huang discloses part of the cultivation method of the Qianyuan sacred ground and allows us to practice it, this matter will be resolved. Cheng Wang didn't beat around the bush and went straight to the point. His purpose. It was the cultivation method of the Qianyuan sacred ground. Nowadays, high-level cultivation techniques were too hard to come by. The cultivation method of the Qianyuan sacred ground could meet all his needs. One had to know. The cultivation method in the game was not just illusory. Even in reality, it could be practiced. If he was able to obtain a powerful cultivation technique, he would be able to obtain great benefits in the real world, not to mention the other benefits. Qin Shujian nodded slightly and said, what you said makes sense. Hearing this, Cheng Wang smiled and said, so, Qin Shi Huang agrees. Unfortunately, Bin Huang refused. Qin Shujian shook his head, which directly made Cheng Wang's smile stiffen on his face. Does Qin Shi Huang really want to fight to the death? Fight to the death? Do you think you can do it? Qin Shujian asked rhetorically. Immediately, his face suddenly turned cold, and the momentum of his body suddenly erupted. In an instant, the void collapsed. Cheng Wang, who was standing in front of Qin Shujian, didn't even have time to react before he was directly crushed to death by this momentum. At this time, Qin Shujian looked down at the many players, like a god above the ninth heaven, and said lightly, Bin Huang is the emperor of the human race. Who are you to question me? If you want the Qianyuan sacred ground to release the cultivation method, then show me your strength. Speaking of this, Qin Shujian glanced at the players again and said regretfully, unfortunately, Bin Huang is saying that you are all trash. Boom. In one sentence, the emotions of all the players completely exploded. Anger. Incomparable anger. No one expected that Qin Shujian would be so arrogant. In the face of tens of millions of players, he still dared to call everyone trash. Even Chao Hong and Lu Qinghong's faces were stunned. Compared to the anger of being insulted, they were more surprised by Qin Shujian's approach. This Qin Shujian is really tough. With so many people here, he dares to ridicule us. Does he really think that he is invincible? Chao Hong shook his head, puzzled by Qin Shujian's approach. After the shock, Lu Qinghong's eyes were gloomy. This is good. If the others don't kill him, it will be difficult to quell the hatred in their hearts. Sure enough, after Qin Shujian finished speaking, a player suddenly shouted angrily, F***CK. Kill him? What kind of bullshit emperor is this? Does he really think that he is a powerful person? Today, I will not only kill him, but also destroy the Qianyuan sacred ground. Kill. A large number of players rose into the air and charged toward Qin Shujian. Now, Qin Shujian was not standing high. At most, he was about 100 feet in the air. Although not all players had reached the airborne realm, with the strength of the players at this stage, it was not a problem for them to rise into the air for a short time. The battle. It erupted. Qin Shujian looked at the many players who had been killed, and his face was cold. His green robe fluttered slightly. The aura on his body suddenly erupted. Thousands of miles of the void instantly collapsed, and all the players who rose into the air were directly crushed into minced meat in front of this aura. However, the number of players who died was only a drop in the ocean compared to the tens of millions of players. Anyway, they could be resurrected if they died. At most, they would lose levels. In the past, the players would still cherish their wings, but now that they were angry, they were ready to go all out. Self-destruct. Use self-destruct to break his aura suppression. Some players saw that Qin Shujian did not make a move and only relied on his aura suppression to kill many players, so they immediately shouted loudly. After that, he took the lead to rise into the air, and his body exploded with a bang. Boom! A powerful force erupted, but it could only set off a small wave in the void. If there was one, was there a way to let a cultivator exert power that was far beyond their own? Self-destruct. That was the only way out. The self-destruction of a physical invulnerability cultivator was enough to injure a spirit god realm cultivator. Even an airborne realm cultivator would not dare to take the self-destruction of a spirit god realm cultivator. For Qin Shujian, the self-destruction of a cultivator of this level had no effect at all. But this premise, there were not many of them. After the first player self-destructed, the other players immediately self-destructed one after another. The power of the self-destruction gathered together. It made Qin Shujian frown secretly. Immediately, he struck out with his palm, and the condensed energy from his palm shattered the vacuum. Instantly, an area of the densely packed players was cleared. That palm strike, at least tens of thousands of players died. Boom, boom, boom. The battle had entered a white-hot stage since the outbreak. Qin Shujian stood in the air and unilaterally slaughtered the players. However, under the continuous self-destruction of many players, the aura that was suppressing the void suddenly broke through. Boom! The aura collapsed. Suddenly, more players rose into the air and charged towards Qin Shujian. Qin Shujian was not afraid. Every move he made was filled with immense power. Any player who got close to him was annihilated by this power. After breaking through to the 6th tier of the celestial realm, his combat strength had completely reached the peak of the nirvana realm. In fact, he had already surpassed the strength of Emperor Zhao when he walked out of the eastern continent and fought the emperors of the 4 races. In such a situation, although there were many players, it was difficult to shake him in the slightest. Military formation. Quick, form into a military formation. When a team leader saw this scene, he immediately gathered all the members of the team together and formed a military formation to fight against the enemy. Military formation. This was the method of Emperor Zhao. Players naturally had a chance to get it. However, in order to form a powerful military formation, one had to undergo strict training. Hence, the only ones who could truly master military formations were those players with teams. Suddenly, many scattered players gathered together and formed military formations one after another. All the chi and blood gathered. They turned into military spirits and soared into the sky. Every player who formed a military formation was at least of the physical invulnerability realm. In this way, the military spirits were even more powerful. Military formation. Qin Shujian wiped out a group of players with a wave of his hand. Looking at the players who had formed a formation in the distance, he frowned. He did not expect. The military formation in Emperor Zhao's hands was really mastered by the players. However, military formations were also divided into levels. After mastering it, one would not be able to unleash the strongest strength. However, no matter how weak the strength was, it was still a military formation. When tens of thousands of physical invulnerability realm players were gathered together, they could unleash the strength of a celestial. In other words, if someone could really gather tens of thousands of players into a powerful military formation, they might really be able to fight against the emperors of the small races. Players. After all, their wings were growing. However, to Qin Shujian's relief, the players were still within his control. Seeing many military formations formed, he did not hide his strength anymore. God-tier martial arts. Celestial phenomenon. His 10,000 feet tall body stood proudly in the sky. A terrifying aura swept over like a wave. After casting the lawful embodiment of heaven and earth, Qin Shujian's strength had completely reached the level of 150,000. Boom! With a step, the ground cracked and countless players were swallowed. Next, with another palm print, the army's spirit collapsed. The players who formed the military formation spat out blood and directly turned into white light and fled. At this moment, there were also players who wanted to self-destruct to injure Qin Shujian. However, Qin Shujian's physical defense had already reached the level of suppressing the void. Unless the attack was really powerful and had reached the 10th tier of the celestial, there was no possibility of breaking his defense. The players self-destructed. The military formation was formed. Qin Shujian turned into a 10,000 feet tall giant and wantonly slaughtered. Originally, he was prepared to use the Red Lotus of Purgation to get rid of all the players. However, the Heavenly Axiom's warning made him understand that doing so might cause unpredictable danger. Therefore, Qin Shujian suppressed this impulse. However, although he could not use the Red Lotus of Purgation, it did not prevent him from using other means. This battle, it was destined to destroy the morale of all the players. Or else, in the future, the players would easily form tens of thousands of people to force him to abdicate. Then, the possibility of the Eastern continent to balance the players would be even lower. Therefore, he could only let these players feel despair. Only then could he solve this problem. Since the outbreak of the war, the entire Bayun mansion, and even the human experts of the Eastern continent, had their eyes fixed on this place. They also wanted to know, how would Qin Shujian deal with so many mutants? But no one expected. This Qin Shi Huang's means were so violent that he would kill at the slightest disagreement. Qianyuan's sacred ground. At this moment, the passage to the sacred ground had been opened. Several elders of the sacred ground and other cultivators in the sacred ground saw the situation outside through the passage. The strength of Qin Shi Huang is really terrifying. Qin Yuanbai looked shocked. He knew that Qin Shujian was very strong, but when he saw that the other party could still wantonly slaughter countless mutants, he was still shocked. However, Qin Yuanbai did not make a move. No one else made a move either, because Qin Shujian had given an order before. In this battle, no one was allowed to intervene. This was a grudge between him and the players. The heaven list suppressed the world. Every time it fell, hundreds of thousands of players would be killed. The long river of rules surged. The void also cracked. All the players who faced the long river of rules turned into white light and dissipated. At this moment, Qin Shujian was completely immersed in the slaughter. Any player who blocked in front of him could not escape the order to revive. A large number of players died. This caused the white light in the Liang Mountain spiritual domain to soar into the sky. How many tens of millions of players were there? A lot. A lot. But even with so many players, they could not stop Qin Shujian's footsteps at all. Those players who self-destructed could not break his defense at all. In this battle, the mountains collapsed. The rivers stopped flowing. Qin Shujian was the one who had created all this power and influence. As for the players in front of him, they were as weak as ants. No one knew how long had passed. Qin Shujian suddenly stopped. It was not because he was exhausted, but because there were no other players around. Between heaven and earth, only a giant tens of thousands of feet tall stood proudly in the sky. The terrifying power was still extremely strong, shaking the wind and clouds and cracking the void. As for the players, they had all disappeared. All the people who were watching this battle were also speechless. Chapter 634. The player's respawn interval was 10 minutes. Every time they died, it would stack for 10 minutes. The longest respawn time was 1 hour. How long was 1 hour? It wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. But with Qin Shujian's killing speed, every step he took, he could crush tens of thousands of players. In 1 hour, killing tens of millions of players was a piece of cake. At this moment, the players that surrounded Liang Mountain's spiritual region all disappeared. It wasn't because they were all dead. It was because they all entered respawn time. Occasionally, there would be sporadic flashes of light. One by one, the idle players respawned. But when they saw the empty area around them and Qin Shujian's huge body, they didn't rush forward to kill this boss. Yes, players wouldn't die. This was their biggest asset. But they wouldn't die. That didn't mean they weren't afraid. And the more they died in the game, the more their realms in reality would be affected, although it wouldn't fall. But without the support of the realms in the game, their cultivation speed would definitely decrease a lot. This was like a heavily injured state. All attributes would be halved. The speed of cultivation decided a lot of things. Reality wasn't a game. There was no such thing as killing monsters to level up. Once the cultivation speed decreased, it would be hard to increase it in the future. More importantly, in reality, The lifespan of a player was no more than 100 years. If they couldn't cultivate to a higher level, they might face the risk of their lifespan running out. In general, not everyone was a cultivation genius. Most of them were mediocre cultivators. They relied on the boost of realms in the game to be able to cultivate quickly in reality. If they didn't have that, then it would be very troublesome. No one didn't want to live forever. In the past, they didn't see the possibility of living forever. Now that they saw it, who would be willing to give it up? So, in the game, players wouldn't really die, but their realms would drop. Qin Shujian's provocation had caused them to be blinded by anger, and they had thought that they could kill the boss with their numbers. Hence, they had launched an attack. But now, they were completely sober. Stop fighting. There was no point. Some players looked at their realms and showed a sad expression. Second level of the true martial realm. If I fall again, I will fall into the martial realm. I can't fight this battle. When the battle started, he was at the first level of the spirit martial realm. After the fight, he was only at the second level of the martial realm. He had died 8 or 9 times. Who knew what would happen in this battle? How did he survive? Qin Shujian didn't kill the resurrected players because it wasn't necessary. In this battle, he had already achieved the effect he wanted, and Qin Shujian believed it. As time passed, this battle would be deeply rooted in people's hearts. In the future, unless the players had absolute confidence, they would not be able to survive. Or else, it would also be difficult for them to form such a large group again. He retracted his lawful embodiment of heaven and earth. Qin Shujian rose into the air and looked at the players who were resurrected one after another. He said lightly, "The Qinyuan sacred ground is not to be provoked. If you do it again, there will be no place for you in the eastern continent." After that, he flew straight into the sky and returned to the Qianyuan realm. The scene was deathly silent. "I lost." Someone sighed. In the past, when they were defeated, they would feel anger and resentment. But in this battle, there was nothing to say. Tens of millions of players besieged one person, but in the end, they were still defeated. Each of them died at least 3 or 4 times, and some of them even lost a large realm. In this battle, countless players were killed and injured. Looking at Qin Shujian, he was unscathed. Such a gap was already hopeless. Lu Qingheng looked at his own realm, turned his head to look at his fellow sufferer, and said with a wry smile, "How much did you lose?" "I'm at the 3rd level of the martial realm." Chao Hong sighed. He was back to square one. Just now, he was also affected by the battle and lost his mind. As a result, when he woke up, he found that the 3rd level of the spiritual martial realm had become the 3rd level of the martial realm. He had lost a large realm. Thinking of this, Chao Hong shook his head with a wry smile. "I knew it was impossible to defeat him, but it didn't work. The years in the game were wasted. It will take at least 2 or 3 years to cultivate back to the same level. Alas, let's go." Lu Qingheng looked at his realm and felt a little better. But no matter what, this time, the players could be said to have suffered heavy losses. In the Qianyuan realm, all the cultivators of the Holy Land were watching this battle. When Qin Shujian returned, the others also looked at him with reverence. Some people opened their mouths and wanted to say something, but they didn't know what to say. Qin Shujian looked at the crowd and said, "There's nothing to see. Let's disperse. All the elders of the Holy Land, go to the Qianyuan Hall for a meeting." Yes. In the Qianyuan Hall, Qin Shujian and a group of elders were having a meeting. The universe Tao-seeking scripture and the human emperor's immortal slaying technique have appeared in the eastern continent, suitable for all humans to cultivate. How is the progress of the various academies? On the main seat, Qin Shujian said in a deep voice. Hearing this, Cui Huai, one of the elders of the Holy Land, cupped his hands and said, reporting to the Qin Emperor, "Now the various Qianyuan academies have begun the first batch of enrollment. Because there is no threshold, there are many people signing up." With the current scale of the academy, it can't accommodate so many people. If it can't accommodate so many people, then let's choose the best ones. In the future, when the academy expands, we will recruit new academies. Qin Shujian nodded. Then he said, "In the future, The universe Tao-seeking scripture and the human emperor's immortal slaying technique will be the main cultivation methods and martial arts of the human race. The various academies will also focus on teaching these two martial arts. As for the rest, you can decide for yourselves. Every academy had many teachers. Every teacher was a cultivator with a profound cultivation base. If some talented students were chosen by them, it was normal for them to accept them as disciples. Qin Shujian had no intention of stopping them. He only had one request. These two cultivation methods and martial arts must blossom everywhere in the Eastern continent. The human passage. The person guarding the passage had changed from Duan Sun to another Empyrean cultivator. Qin Shujian wasn't very familiar with him. So, he didn't talk much with him. He walked past the heaven-span mirror and entered the passage. Not long after, he walked out of the passage and officially entered the human territory. Ever since the Black Emperor moved the Black Stone secret realm to the human territory, with the Black Stone Condor race guarding it, the human territory faced much less pressure. To be precise, the pressure on the eastern city facing the western state had been greatly reduced. At this moment, inside the Black Stone secret realm, the Black Emperor was in seclusion to heal his injuries. In the previous battle, up until now, the injuries on his body had not fully recovered. In these few months, other than the Black Emperor dealing with the relocation of the Black Stone secret realm at the beginning, he spent the rest of his time healing his injuries. All of a sudden, the Black Emperor opened his eyes. There was a trace of astonishment on his calm face. In the next moment, the Black Emperor came out of seclusion. The sealed entrance of the Black Stone secret realm was also directly opened. Qin Emperor, you've come from afar. Sorry for not welcoming you. The secret realm opened. The Black Emperor appeared with a smile on his face. In front of him stood Qin Shujian. Then, the Black Emperor said again, Qin Emperor, why don't you follow me into the Black Stone secret realm? Sure. Qin Shujian nodded and walked into the Black Stone secret realm in a grand manner. Entering a small world with an owner without permission, if he was careless, perhaps they would encounter unpredictable dangers. However, Qin Shujian was not too worried. Firstly, with his current strength, even if there was a problem with the Black Stone secret realm, he would be able to deal with it. Secondly, the Black Emperor had already made an oath. As long as the other party did not want to die, then it would not be a problem. In the main hall, the Black Emperor sat on the main seat. Besides, he was also the Emperor of the Black Stone Condor race, so it was only right for him to sit on the main seat. Qin Shujian did not pay much attention to these things. After casually sitting down, the Black Emperor was the first to speak. I wonder why Qin Emperor has come to my Black Stone secret realm this time? A few months later, Qin Shujian had never been to the Black Stone secret realm before. He suddenly came over at this time. He would not believe that there was no problem. In the past few days, the destiny of the human clan was shaken. The Black Emperor also heard Qin Shujian's voice. Not only that, he had even seen the stone tablet that had descended on the human clan's territory in the eastern continent. For this, he had also obtained the heaven and earth Tao-seeking scripture and the human emperor's immortal slaying technique. But to be safe, the Black Emperor did not cultivate it himself. Instead, he let the cultivators under him try to cultivate it. The result was self-evident. His body exploded and he died. This was the only outcome of cultivating the stone tablet cultivation method. At this point, the Black Emperor extinguished the thought of peering into the mysteries of the heaven and earth Tao-seeking scripture. Not only that, he also ordered all the cultivators of the Black Stone Condor race not to cultivate the heaven and earth Tao-seeking scripture and the human emperor's immortal slaying technique. Such a cultivation method, other than the humans, whoever cultivated it would die. The Black Emperor was also glad that he did not cultivate the heaven and earth Tao-seeking scripture on impulse. Or else, even if the backlash of the cultivation method would not kill him, he would definitely be severely injured. Qin Shujian said, "What does the Black Emperor know about the nine-headed dog race and the earth dragons?" Hearing this, the Black Emperor's expression immediately turned ugly. Nine-headed dog race, earth dragons. These two races were the eternal pain in his heart. He would never forget that he had confidently sent a message, but in the end, what he received was a cold betrayal. Otherwise, the Black Stone Condor race would not have fallen to such a state, and he would not have submitted to the human clan. Thinking of the two races, the Black Emperor was extremely furious. However, no matter how angry he was, he did not reveal this emotion in front of Qin Shujian. After pondering for a moment, the Black Emperor said, "What exactly does the Qin Emperor want to know? If it's the strength of the two races, the Qin Emperor should be very clear about it. The two races' attitude towards the human clan, as well as their origins. That's simple." The Black Emperor nodded, and then said, "The nine-headed dog race was subdued by the experts of the human clan in the ancient times. Before the heavenly court, the true immortal of the nine-headed dog race was once the mount of a human emperor. Unfortunately, with the collapse of the ancient heavenly court, the human clan's power declined, and the nine-headed dog race broke away from the vassal of the human clan. Perhaps because of the ancient times, although the nine-headed dog race broke away from the human clan, they still retained some goodwill towards the human clan." The meaning of his words was very clear. The nine-headed dog race betrayed the human clan when they were in trouble. To this, the Black Emperor purely wanted to find trouble for the Dog Emperor. With his understanding of the Qin Emperor, he was not very broad-minded. However, the Black Emperor also knew when to stop, so he only pointed out a little on this matter, and then told him everything about the nine-headed dog race. These things, after 1,000,000 years, it could still be considered a secret. If not for the Black Stone Condor race's alliance with the nine-headed dog race, he would not have known so much. The nine-headed dog race was once the human emperor's mount. Qin Shujian was surprised. This was really beyond his expectations. From the information obtained by the Yuan cabinet, the nine-headed dog race had a certain favorable impression of the human clan. But where did this favorable impression come from? He did not know for now. Qin Shujian had originally guessed that the nine-headed dog race had some relationship with the human clan. Now that he heard the Black Emperor's words, he finally understood. This was more than just a little relationship, and a very big one. The true immortal of the nine-headed dog race was once the human emperor's mount. In other words, the nine-headed dog race was once a vassal of the human clan. But now, the nine-headed dog race was no longer a vassal of the human clan. What this meant was very clear. That was, the nine-headed dog race had betrayed the human clan. Perhaps it was not a blatant betrayal, but a separation from the human clan in order to protect themselves when the human clan was in decline. But in Qin Shujian's opinion, a betrayal was a betrayal. There was nothing to say. Soon, he thought of Xia Yi's words again. The human clan used to have many allies, but the most unreliable ones were also allies. However, whether the nine-headed dog race betrayed us or not doesn't matter much to me. After all, that was hundreds of thousands of years ago. If the nine-headed dog race can still stand on the human clan side now, there is a chance to make use of it. Qin Shujian thought to himself. He would talk about this later. But from the Black Emperor, he knew a little about the nine-headed dog race's past with the human clan. Then, Qin Shujian said again, "Is there a true immortal left in the Black Stone Condor race?" As he spoke, his gaze fell on the Black Emperor, paying attention to the changes in his expression. Hearing that, the Black Emperor said with a bitter smile, "The true immortal of my race has already fallen." Later came Xia Yi of the human clan. Senior Xia Yi cut off the rules of heaven and earth and had no hope of becoming an immortal. If the Black Stone Condor race had a true immortal left, it wouldn't be like this. If there really was a true immortal, he wouldn't have been forced to submit to Qin Shujian. Qin Shujian also understood. Plus the Black Emperor's tone, the Black Stone Condor race should really have no true immortals. But speaking of true immortals, I suspect that the nine-headed dog race should have a true immortal who hasn't fallen yet, the Black Emperor said in a low voice. Nine-headed dog race? Qin Shujian's expression was serious. The Black Emperor said, "You should know that all true immortals stopped 200,000 years ago. Since then, no more true immortals were born in the 4 major continents. 200,000 years ago, many true immortals of the various races died. Only a few true immortals escaped from the war. I don't know much about these few true immortals. I only know that the Yao race had won, the Blood Eldar had won, the ancient Buddha race had won, but I'm not sure if the Shin race had won. But other than these true immortals who participated in the war, there were still some true immortals who didn't participate in the war. Among them, the nine-headed dog race was one. Qin Shu Jian understood. 200,000 years ago, the nine-headed dog race had a true immortal. But that true immortal, he didn't participate in the war between the human race and the other races. So it's like this. The nine-headed dog race might really have a true immortal left. After having some ideas, Qin Shujian said, "Then what about the earth-crouching dragons?" The earth-crouching dragons were a race that split off from the Yao race in the ancient times. They were both dragons, but dragons reigned supreme in the Yao race. The earth-crouching dragons were ostracized and eventually rebelled against the Yao race. Like the nine-headed dog race, the earth-crouching dragons also gave birth to many powerful warriors in the ancient times. Even now, they still have a lot of resources left. But the earth-crouching dragon finger only focuses on dealing with the Yao race and rarely pays attention to other things. The Black Emperor said truthfully. In the end, he added, as for whether there are still ancient true immortals among the earth-crouching dragons, that is unknown. I see. Qin Shu Jian nodded. The earth-crouching dragons were split off from the Yao race. Needless to say, they must have been ostracized by the dragons. Now in the Yao race, it was the dragons that reigned supreme. No wonder the earth-crouching dragons were at odds with the Yao race. Looking at Qin Shujian in front of him, the Black Emperor said, "Emperor Qin, are you asking about the two races because you want to rope them in?" Since ancient times, the human race has been weak. Now that the eastern continent is open, the human race has to face the persecution of the other races. If we don't find some allies, I'm afraid we'll be in a difficult situation. Qin Shujian shook his head and said. Hearing that, the corner of the Black Emperor's mouth twitched slightly. It was true that the human race was weak, but that might not be the case when facing the persecution of the other races. Ever since the human race left the eastern continent, they hadn't suffered much. On the contrary, there were many races that the human race had persecuted, not to mention other things. He was one of the victims. The Black Emperor only thought about these words in his heart and didn't really say them out loud. The nine-headed dog clan should be able to, but the earth-crouching dragons might not. Unless Emperor Qin can offer a reward that can move the earth-crouching dragons, it will be difficult to make the earth-crouching dragon side with the human race. The Black Emperor said calmly. If the human race was still in a good situation, there was Emperor Zhao in front and Emperor Qin behind. These two emperors alone were enough to ensure that the human race's situation wouldn't collapse. They had an advantage. Naturally, they had allies. The nine-headed dog clan originally gave up on the human race because the human race had no hope of winning. But now that the true immortals didn't appear, the human race still had a big advantage. The dog emperor would most likely side with the human race. Qin Shujian said, Black Emperor, do you know why the human race left the eastern continent? I'd like to hear the details. The Black Emperor's expression became serious. This matter. He also wanted to know. The human race hadn't left the eastern continent for so many years, but now they did. Now that the eastern continent was open, the Black Emperor had some understanding of the history of the human race in the eastern continent. To be honest, the current strength of the human clan was still too weak if these two top experts were not included. If he was the human emperor of the human race, he would definitely recuperate in the eastern continent for hundreds or thousands of years. When enough experts were born, he would forcefully open the eastern continent and face the various races with an absolute strength. Not like now. After leaving the eastern continent, he was restricted by the various races to the human territory and could not enter. However, although the Black Emperor appeared to be listening respectfully, but in his heart, he also had some guesses. In his opinion, there was a high possibility that the human race opened the eastern continent. It was because Emperor Zhao didn't have much lifespan left and wanted to complete the rules to become an immortal. Black Emperor, you should know something about the ancient calamity. Of course. The Black Emperor nodded. The ancient demonic abyss descended, and the evil demons wreaked havoc in the world, causing the heavenly court to collapse. Different from the human race, the races that still existed in the three continents had basically preserved relatively complete inheritances. As for the human race, they could have preserved their complete inheritances, but unfortunately, too many battles had happened, and their inheritances had gradually been lost. After that, the Black Emperor had a thought, and his expression changed slightly. Could it be that the human race leaving the eastern continent is related to the ancient calamity? That's right. Qin Shujian nodded. The Black Emperor's heart exploded, and he could no longer maintain his calm expression. The ancient calamity. This was a huge matter. For a moment, the Black Emperor could not maintain his calm. Qin Shujian said, "The Emperor of Heaven / did not really solve the ancient calamity. It only cut off the world and cut off its connection with the demonic abyss. But in reality, other than the three continents, the eastern continent's world has been constantly evolving. It won't be long before it reconnects with the demonic abyss. At that time, the calamity of the world will definitely descend again." The main reason why the human race left the eastern continent is because if they can't produce a true immortal, then the human race won't have the chance to fight against the evil demons. Boom! The Black Emperor's body swayed a few times, and his face turned pale. It was really related to the demonic abyss. How could it be? How could it be like this? The Black Emperor found it hard to accept. Even though the four continents were all very powerful, that was only relatively speaking. Compared to the ancient times, the various races were not worth mentioning. In other words, once the demonic abyss descended, they would be dead. The Black Emperor could not believe it and muttered, "How could this be? How could the calamity of the demonic abyss appear again? Impossible, impossible." No matter how unwilling the Black Emperor is to believe it, this is the truth. No one can change it. Currently, only the human race knows about this. Of course, the demons might know about it too. After all, there are demons in the eastern continent who have fled back to the western continent. However, it's not important whether the demons know about it or not. What's important is that the calamity of the demonic abyss is about to arrive. With the current strength of the four continents, it's impossible to resist the calamity. Qin Shujian said calmly. The Black Emperor smiled bitterly. It's not just impossible. If the calamity of the demonic abyss really comes, the four continents will definitely be destroyed. However, even if we open the eastern continent now, is it possible to resist the calamity of the demonic abyss? At this point, his gaze fell on Qin Shujian. The other party had said so much. Could it be that he had the confidence to resist the calamity of the demonic abyss? However, as soon as this thought arose, the Black Emperor extinguished it. The human race did not have a single true immortal. What could they use to resist the demonic abyss? Qin Shujian said, "It doesn't matter if we have the confidence or not. The calamity of the demonic abyss is something that we have to face. Now that the laws of heaven and earth are complete, sooner or later, a true immortal will be born. What the human race needs to do is to gather enough luck in the remaining time. As long as the luck is abundant, the human race will be able to produce a true immortal expert. In the future, we will have more confidence in resisting the demonic abyss." Bin Huang can tell you with certainty that if even the human race has no chance of resisting the demonic abyss, then the other races will definitely have no chance of resisting the demonic abyss. While they were talking, Qin Shujian's face revealed great confidence. The Black Emperor's ugly expression revealed his confusion. Does the Qin Emperor have some trump card to resist the demonic abyss? Of course. Qin Shujian smiled mysteriously and said, "What realm do you think Bin Huang should be in now?" The Qin Emperor should be in the Nirvana realm. The Black Emperor did not understand, but he still gave an answer. With Qin Shujian's strength, he must have not become an immortal yet. Then, the only possibility was the Nirvana realm. Qin Shujian shook his head. The Black Emperor asked tentatively, "The 10th level of the celestial being?" His heart trembled slightly. If he was at the 10th level of the celestial being, he had the strength to match Xueling Huang. This talent was a bit terrifying. 6th level of the celestial being, Qin Shujian said softly. Impossible. The Black Emperor did not believe it. Sixth level of the celestial being, how is it possible? However, after he denied it, he looked at Qin Shujian's calm expression, and his expression gradually changed. Qin, is what the Qin Emperor said true? To be precise, Bin Huang only broke through the sixth level of the celestial being 2 days ago. In the past, he was only at the fifth level of the celestial being. Qin Shujian smiled slightly. His words were understated, as if he was describing something insignificant. But these words, it set off a huge storm in the Black Emperor's heart. Sixth level of the celestial being. No, fifth level of the celestial being? Fifth level of the celestial being had the strength to match the top experts. What kind of talent was this? Moreover, now that Qin Shujian had broken through to the sixth level of the celestial being, would his strength become even more terrifying? This news, it made the Black Emperor in disbelief. He had never thought that Qin Shujian would be a cultivator at the fifth or sixth level of the celestial being. He had always thought that the other party was a supreme expert of the Nirvana realm. Thinking of this, the Black Emperor's expression was both shocked and strange as he said, "Since the Qin Emperor has broken through to the sixth level of the celestial being, his strength must have become even stronger." It seems that the Black Emperor doesn't believe it. It's not that I don't believe it, it's just that this news is too shocking. The Black Emperor said it more tactfully, but in his heart, he really thought that Qin Shujian was lying. But when he finished speaking, then he saw Qin Shujian sitting motionlessly in his seat and pointing at him from afar. A simple point of his finger. The void quietly shattered. At this moment, the entire Black Stone's secret realm seemed to feel a great threat, and it began to tremble slightly. As the Black Emperor facing this finger, it was as if all the blood in his body had condensed, and endless terror surged from his heart, causing his body to tremble. The fear of death. The Black Emperor could no longer maintain his calm. Boom! He suddenly attacked, and a vast amount of vital essence erupted, turning into a shocking palm strike. However, when the palm strike touched Qin Shujian's finger, it quietly dissipated. Then, the Black Emperor's body seemed to have been struck by lightning, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Just as his finger was about to touch the space between his eyebrows, Qin Shujian suddenly took it away. All the power dissipated, and the trembling Black Stone secret realm also calmed down. At this moment, the experts of the Black Stone Condor race in the Black Stone secret realm sensed this scene and were about to barge into the hall. The Black Emperor immediately stopped them. Bin Huang is sparring with the Qin Emperor. None of you are allowed to enter. One sentence. He blocked all the cultivators outside. After that, the Black Emperor looked at Qin Shujian with a complicated expression, and in the complicated expression, there was also a faint fear. That finger just now, he sensed the aura of death. In other words, if Qin Shujian did not stop that finger just now, even if he did not die, he would be seriously injured. Regarding this result, the Black Emperor could not accept it. It was not that he had not seen Qin Shujian's strength, but at that time, the other party had used all his means, and his power was definitely not as terrifying as now. The Black Emperor was not sure whether Qin Shujian had really only broken through from the fifth level of the celestial being to the sixth level of the celestial being. But he could understand. The other party's strength had become stronger. In fact, he was even stronger than the Demon Emperor. After a long time, the Black Emperor came back to his senses, looked at Qin Shujian, and said, "The Qin Emperor's methods are amazing, and I am very impressed. But is this the confidence of the human race to face the demon abyss?" You should know that in ancient times, there were also many true immortals. Although Qin Shujian's current strength is terrifying, I am afraid that he has not reached the level of a true immortal. He admitted that Qin Shujian's strength was very strong. At least, it would not take much effort to kill him. But the problem was, if he wanted to rely on this to deal with the demon abyss, it was still far from enough. Qin Shujian said with a faint smile, "In ancient times, even someone as strong as the Emperor of Heaven was defeated by the demon abyss. Before Bin Huang becomes an immortal, he naturally does not dare to say that he is stronger than the Emperor of Heaven. The meaning of his words. After becoming an immortal, he would be stronger than the Emperor of Heaven. The Black Emperor did not object to Qin Shujian's arrogant words. If the other party was really at the 6th level of the celestial being, then after becoming an immortal, it was not impossible to reach the level of the Emperor of Heaven. Black Emperor, do you know why the demon abyss exists? I hope the Qin Emperor can explain. The reason why the evil demons in the demon abyss do not die is because the evil demons were created by an existence above the rules. To be able to deal with an existence above the rules, only an existence above the rules can do so. Qin Shujian repeated the words that the god-slaying saber had said to him. The Black Emperor looked puzzled. Above the rules? Above the rules, the Black Emperor shouldn't know much about it, and Bin Huang can't say much about such an existence. However, Bin Huang can tell you that only the human clan can deal with the demon abyss, and Bin Huang is proof. Qin Shujian's words were a little mysterious. The Black Emperor fell into deep thought. The demon abyss was created by an existence above the rules. Only an existence above the rules could deal with the demon abyss. Then why was it that only the human clan could deal with the demon abyss? Could it be that there was an existence above the rules in the human clan? That's not right. If the human clan had an existence above the rules, how could they lose in ancient times? The Black Emperor overturned his original conclusion. Soon after, his gaze fell on Qin Shujian, and his pupil shrank. An existence above the rules might not necessarily be an expert of the human clan, but might be related to a certain human clan. If his current realm is really only at the 6th level of the celestial realm, then, to be able to nurture such a terrifying expert, could it be that he is above the rules? Instantly, the Black Emperor thought of many things. Qin Shujian looked at the Black Emperor's gradually understanding eyes and knew that his hint had been effective. Without waiting for the Black Emperor to speak, he said with a faint smile, "However, the demon abyss is a great calamity of the world, and also a great calamity for the beings of the 4 great continents. The rules have already surpassed the world, and will not casually act. The ones who can truly deal with the demon abyss will still have to rely on us. Cannot casually act, then they can still act." The Black Emperor thought to himself, and then smiled. If that's the case, Qin Emperor, you have a great chance of dealing with the demon abyss. That's right, Bin Huang will definitely become an immortal within 100 years. Now that the human clan is weak, if the Black Stone Condor clan can wholeheartedly serve the human clan, you will definitely benefit greatly in the future. Even if the Black Emperor wants to become an immortal, Bin Huang also has a way to help. Qin Shujian said lightly. The Black Emperor's face lit up, but he quickly suppressed it and said, "What does Qin Emperor need me to do?" "You don't need to do anything. Black Emperor only needs to abide by your original promise. If the human clan exists, then everything will be fine. If the human clan does not exist, then whether the world exists or not has nothing to do with Bin Huang. Qin Emperor, don't worry. Since I have already made an oath, then I will not betray it." The Black Emperor said with a serious expression. He did not completely believe Qin Shujian's words, but he believed 70 to 80%. The biggest factor, it was Qin Shujian's strength. Moreover, even if what Qin Shujian said was false, with the strength that he had shown, he was the best choice for the Black Stone Condor clan. At least, in the Black Emperor's opinion, Qin Shujian's strength was already more terrifying than the Demon Emperor's. Even if he became an immortal, the other party's probability of becoming an immortal was much higher than the Black Emperor's. Then, Qin Shujian stood up. With the Black Emperor's words, Bin Huang is relieved. This matter is over. Bin Huang still has other things to do, so I won't disturb you. After saying that, he looked at the blood at the corner of the Black Emperor's mouth. Just now, I accidentally injured the Black Emperor. I hope you don't take offense. It's just a small injury, but my skill is not as good as others. Qin Emperor is too serious. The Black Emperor said with a smile. That's good. Qin Shujian did not say anything more and left the Black Stone secret realm in the blink of an eye. After he left, the smile on the Black Emperor's face faded a little, and his expression became incomparably solemn. 6th level of the Heaven Realm, Great tribulation of the demon abyss, above the rules. It seems that things are much more complicated than I thought. After murmuring to himself, the Black Emperor thought of the absolute strength Qin Shujian had displayed just now and could not help but smile bitterly. While smiling bitterly, he felt a little lucky in his heart. Lucky that the Black Stone Condor race was not enemies with the human race now. Otherwise, with Qin Shujian's current strength, even if he had the Black Stone Secret Realm, he would definitely not be a match for him. On the other side, Qin Shujian also left the Black Stone Secret Realm and was rushing to the Nine-Headed Dog race. The main reason why he met the Black Emperor this time. He just wanted to know more about the other two races. As for what he said later, it was purely to trick and beat the Black Emperor. Although the Black Emperor had already submitted, the oath of the rules had already been made. But the other party had submitted, so there must be resentment in his heart. Now, like this, it could be considered as intimidating the Black Emperor. Not to mention anything else. Even if the Black Emperor could break the oath of the rules one day and betray the human race, he would have to seriously consider whether it was worth it. As for promising the other party to become an immortal, it was just Qin Shujian casually saying it. Anyway, there's no need to pay a price for boasting, so there's no harm in saying it. P.S. Support the original version, Chidian Chinese networks. I'm really upright. And ask for the last monthly votes at the end of the month. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.